We're going to move on to Group G, which is going to be Mexico taking on Taiwan. So I just want to knock out the Taiwan here. Again, you know these names if you've been following competitive Hearthstone. Tom60229, Pinping Ho, AHQ Roger, and Malagos Taiwan. Over on the side of Mexico now, we saw them once playing against Poland. They fell 1-3, but they're represented by Irvin G, Epsilon, Yinis, and Empanizado, which I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing wrong, and I need to work on that.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try. I'm not brave enough. But Mexico, obviously, these are players who, if you aren't following Copa America and some of the Latin tournaments, you're maybe not as familiar with them because you're not seeing as much of them. They're all competitive in their own right. They just don't have the international results that some of the stronger players from Taiwan do. You've seen, obviously, lots of Tom over the years. He's a Hearthstone World Championship competitor. And behind him, Pinping Ho, obviously a well-known name, a household name if you're a Shaman player, and it's very competitive in his own right. Kind of likes to play some quirky things, likes to bring his own tailor-made ideas of what will or won't work, but he has been successful. Like, he is a player that you have seen on the international stage before.
Yeah, and when you think of Mexico's team now, you had Epsilon bringing that Ysera Hunter, as I believe it was. And Ysera Hunter, man, that was a trip to watch. And it was the only game that Mexico actually won versus Poland. So very curious to see what they bring. And I spoke to Epsilon yesterday just a bit, and she admitted that coming up against Taiwan was kind of a scary prospect given all the well-known names, all the competitive results that Taiwan has. Mexico going to kind of have to dig deep, I think, in this one.
Yeah, and this is a situation that is in some ways similar to the China-Brazil situation, where both of these teams are really concerned about the outcome of this match because they want to make sure that they still have a fighting chance to get out of their groups. So Mexico here, if they don't win, that's a real threat to their ability to get out of Group G, whereas Taiwan, with an assertive lead in the group right now, if they go up 2-0 and they're able to win this one authoritatively, they basically guarantee, not entirely mathematically, but they effectively guarantee that they're getting out of this group.
Yeah, and I think when you look at that team and that score, you have to think Taiwan is certainly the favorite in that group, potentially Turkey as well, but they are backed by Pinping Ho, who, as you said, kind of has his own competitive background. We saw him at the 2015 World Championship. We saw him in the 2016 Winter and Spring Asia Pacific Championship. So a guy with a lot of competitive history and, frankly, a lot of character.
My name is Pinping Ho. Taiwan will win the Hearthstone Global Games.
And that's Pinping Ho taking the series.
Our teams are feeling pretty confident. I think we got one of the strongest teams. Certainly think we are favored. I think our lineup, our players, on average better. I think Tom 60229 is probably the strongest, the best player in our team.
Tom is very happy he takes the game over MKR. Very close one, very tricky as well.
He has been consistently performing really well in both tournaments and ladders, so I think he's pretty good. Like a few days before the match, we have the Skype meeting, like we'll decide what kind of decks we're going to bring, and we split out the decks, and then each player will make a refined list and submit it. The most challenging team will be USA. USA has the strongest lineup, and Nishiak is really good. And he's really good. I have to prepare.
It's my destiny to be here.
And we're not even competing tonight, and we still managed to find a way to crawl into somebody else's video, so USA. But Pinping Ho, as someone we said, he's storied as a competitor, he's storied as someone who has marked himself the shaman, but he's also just a guy who, a ton of fun to be around. He's laughing all the time, he's having fun. He's not afraid to, do a little bit of role playing here and there as Thrall. So we saw him hoisting up the hammer, and the elements did obey him.
Yeah, he looks very natural with that Doomhammer thrust up towards the sky. So we're going to take a quick look here at the matchups for this particular pairing. And this is going to be very interesting. No surprise to see Pinping Ho on Shaman. And Tom, as I think the ace for Taiwan, makes a lot of sense. He's certainly the player on that team with the most experience, probably the strongest player on that team. Thoughts on Mexico's lineup?
Yeah, looking at Mexico's lineup, Yinis now piloting that Hunter. I'm very curious to see what they're going to choose to do. If that Hunter was kind of a one-off thing, and if they go back to more kind of the mid-range style of decks. Now, when they competed in Week 2, they brought a lot of really interesting decks in terms of aggressive decks, right? We even saw Discard Zoo, and if you know anything about the current meta, Warlock is certainly nowhere near where it used to be. Prior to set rotation, Zoo was kind of in this weird spot where, yeah, it could deal with, say, Druid. That was really a matchup where it has always shined and it was still shining, but at least you had Reno Lock, which was obviously extremely popular. Nothing for Zoo has really just panned out yet. Zoo is pretty much the only archetype that seems like there's hope, but no one's really put anything together that feels especially dominant. Some of the classes it's always kind of feasted on. Paladin now has its own early game suite in the form of Murlocs. It just doesn't seem very good. So I'm curious to see if they change up their approach and go more towards the middle in terms of bringing the more, at this point in the meta, standard meta decks, because I think that is something that will probably serve them a little bit better, but it remains to be seen.
Yeah, unfortunately, Warlock's just one of those classes where the quest doesn't give the player quite the level of inevitability they would like, and it is very difficult to execute on because you actually have to discard the cards to get that advantage. You can't just have it execute by using the discard cards themselves.
And to no one's surprise, Pimping Ho, I don't even know why they put that second class up there. He was always going to play Shaman. I got to be honest, I love to see it, but at the same time, I kind of wonder if it's a little bit of an Achilles heel with him on the team, because do you just always assume he's going to play Shaman? It seems like your team, the opposing team, always knows what they need to be playing to beat Shaman. Very curious to see if that goes on for the duration of the tournament. Yinis, in the meantime, going to be bringing Warrior, and we discussed it a little bit, but worth beating on again. The Warrior archetypes at this point are basically Pirate and Taunt Warrior, and they're both definitely high up in overall power level.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing some evolution. Tempo Warrior is starting to come back in a fairly significant fashion, but as a general rule, I think this is likely to be Quest Warrior because it's just the strongest power level out of the Warrior decks right now on the whole. And it does offer sort of the best suite of answers to something board-driven like Shaman. If they're running Alley Armorsmiths and Brawls and all the things you would expect to see, that is a deck that fundamentally takes advantage of what Shaman really needs as a win condition, which is just a wide board.
Yeah, we see the players getting ready for their matches here. They're both sitting alone, but they have their comrades in arms on voice comm, so they will not actually really be playing alone. Getting to know Yinis just a little bit better. We see he had 13 Hearthstone Championship Tour points in 2016. Really not a ton, but he was certainly out there going for it. He is someone who is occasionally out there streaming and playing in Copa America Open qualifiers, but he doesn't really have any big results to necessarily look at, and that's kind of a recurring theme, it seems like, with this Mexico team. They're more kind of getting their feet wet in terms of the competitive circuit, but they don't have the results that other teams have.
I mean, 13 is certainly no number to sneeze at because it does mean that he did more than just get ladder placements, likely. But on the other side, Pin Ping Ho, you have seen him, you know him. He's competed at the Asia-Pacific HCT Championships multiple times and was in the World Championship back in 2015. He's definitely well known for his Shaman love, also his non-Shaman wardrobe.
Yeah, shirts and plaid shirts and khaki pants. At that point, you can basically be a Blizzard designer because that's like basically the Hearthstone design team uniform is just plaid shirt and khaki pants. Now, Broad wears jeans, but that's not always the case with everybody.
Yeah, it'd actually be interesting to see Pin Ping Ho and Ben Broad both post photos of their plaid collection and see who is the plaidest of them all.
Gotta guess Broad. Broad actually posted a picture of his closet back in the day. It's just nonstop.
It's just plaid for miles. But I think 100 plaid shirts from Pin Ping Ho, it could be touch and go.
I mean, we certainly need to get them both to rise to this occasion and this challenge. But as we said, Pin Ping Ho on the Shaman. We saw in Week 1, he did bring that Elemental Shaman. So curious to see if he's chosen to make any iterations. And when it comes to somebody who's going to make iterations to Shaman in between 2-week gaps, I would definitely think Pin Ping Ho is the guy I'm going to look to. He's playing enough of the class to where he's going to be constantly updating things as he runs into matchups that he feels changes are needed.
And I mean, we've already seen Shaman Tech. China's Shaman deck was very, very different. They did have some very cool things going for them. Not the traditional Shaman package that you would have expected. You didn't see them go, or at least in what we saw of the deck, you didn't see them go very deep on the Jade mechanic. You also didn't see them go very deep on the Elemental mechanic.
Yeah, it's hard right now to go too deep on the Jade mechanic. The loss of Brand Bronzebeard certainly felt by every class that was kind of styling themselves as a Jade deck. getting rid of Brand just removes a giant power source for them. So not too surprised at all. We're kind of seeing from the Jade package is very much just the bare bones, the Jade Claws, the Jade Lightning, Aya Blackpaw, and then that's pretty much it. In terms of the Elemental package, though, you would expect to see Servant of Kalamos. You're expecting to see Tar Creeper, kind of the early drops that allow you to escalate into Kalamos, Primal Lord, Blaze Caller, all those big, powerful cards.
And this is going to be very interesting because the Servant of Kalamos definitely telegraphs lots of elemental, so this is definitely an elemental-heavy deck. You don't run that if you're not planning on having lots of activators available to you, and it does hopefully allow you to dig for an additional Blaze Caller, additional Kalamos. Like this is a way for Shaman to just have an enormous power spike in the mid game, which is actually a really important time frame in this matchup because Quest Warrior, I mean, they can obviously get a pretty good early activation. They can have taunt minions to play in the early game, but this is a matchup where if Shaman gets the resources they need to curve out, it can actually be very difficult for Warrior to stabilize because you're taking a lot of time to set up, right? The early taunt minions are not very powerful. Ali Armorsmith buys time, but it doesn't necessarily do what you want as the Warrior player in this matchup relative to what we just saw against the Freeze Mage. You can get all the armor you want, but fundamentally, Shaman is not going to run out of steam in quite the same way.
Well, and so back in the day, this matchup was very much mid-range Shaman absolutely crushed Control Warrior because you have that hero power, you had the inevitability in terms of bloodlust, like, okay, you're not drawing cards, they're probably drawing more cards than you are, just let it go. Eventually you're going to just overwhelm them with the board, they run out of board clears, but the current version of Warrior, not only does it have a lot of really sneaky board clears and Sleep with the Fishes, Ravaging Ghoul, circumstantially a board clear, obviously the double brawl, but it also has access to the Ragnar's hero power later on, which helps thin the board out.
I just have to say I do like Soldier 76. Back in my day, Shaman would have this payload delivered already, Rob. It's a good fit. I think you're right. This is definitely a matchup where at one point this would have been Shaman's matchup to lose, whereas now Warrior just has an increased number of ways to deal with, wide but very shallow boards, right? Primordial Drake just answers the Shaman hero power in its entirety, and there's going to be double brawl for sure. This is actually an interesting question here off of this Stonehill Defender. I want to say the correct decision here is that Ali Armorsmith.
That's because it is the correct decision. Congratulations, Kevin. Welcome to the desk. You are fit to be a caster. It was always Ali Armorsmith.
So far, so good.
Ali Armorsmith is just so powerful in its own right. Obviously you had two options for minions that were going to be played on 5. You might as well just X'd out Giant Mastodon. Bless him, the only mammoth in the set for Journey to Un'Goro for Year of the Mammoth, and you just don't want to pick him usually because he's 9 mana. You don't have the ability to activate a hero power with him. Ali Armorsmith just extremely powerful, so good at clearing totems, so good at working to block damage, and just generates armor. So Divine Shield certainly doesn't hold a candle to that.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clearly the correct choice, and I am actually interested to see here. Pimping Ho held back on this Fireplume Harbinger earlier, trying to decide, Harbinger, I know words, trying to decide where to get the most value out of it, and it was sort of always this open question of how many elementals is enough. And it looks like the correct answer was 4. I actually do think this is really powerful because Pimping Ho does have the ability to use either Firefly or the Hot Spring Guardian this coming turn and have the Blaze Caller into Kalamos follow-up, and they're both going to land a turn early, which is a really significant factor when you consider that Blaze Caller is going to clear just about anything that can be on the board by the time it comes down, save maybe for the Ali Armorsmith, and Kalamos is just an incredibly powerful card. Kalamos might be one of the best cards Shaman has available to it right now.
When Kalamos Primal Lord was shown off, people were just losing their collective minds. They're like, how can this card be digitally printed? It's so powerful and it's so good. Well, the answer is that, as we've seen Shaman kind of have waning success just recently, it requires such a long chain of elementals to get to that point to put yourself in a place where it is that powerful. And overall, Kalamos Primal Lord has 4 very powerful options. All of them good in different respects. I actually really enjoy Kalamos Primal Lord against Freeze Mages because that big burst heal suddenly pulls you out of the range. You have the Hot Spring Guardians to kind of be the accoutrement to the main course of Kalamos. But because it has to be in Shaman and it has to be in this elemental deck, it does seem like it goes a little bit too slowly to be impactful in a lot of matchups.
I mean, there is that consideration. I think the flip side of that, though, is that in this matchup in particular, Kalamos quite often is going to come down after you've forced out at least one, if not both, of the brawls from the warrior player. And the more of the warrior's board-wide answers you're able to bait out early, the better something like just being able to go wide on the board with a bunch of tokens becomes, because you know you've got Bloodlust, you know you've got these additional answers coming. Unfortunately, what Pinpingho doesn't really know at this point is that this is a deck that is heavy on the additional ways to clear the board. Double Primordial Drake is not necessarily standard in Quest Warrior. 1 is very common, 2 is not always a guaranteed inclusion, and the additional Alley Armorsmith off of the back of the Stonehill Defender is actually fairly significant because that's just a lot of health to chew through. I don't know how Pinpingho has teched this deck, but things like seeing the Fire Plume on 2, do you think that means he's cut Hex?
It's hard to say. I don't remember from his matchup the first time he played if he was running Hex in this deck, but I don't know. I have some very real hangups with Fire Plume Harbinger in this deck in general because, the nice thing about Emperor Thaurissan back in the day, obviously had a similar effect, reduced the cost of minions every turn, was that it did it every turn, and it was still just such a big body that a lot of times just having a 5/5 on the board was totally worthwhile. Fire Plume Harbinger only costs 2 mana, yeah, and it has the Emperor Thaurissan effect to a subsect of cards, but the body is 100% negligible. It is not being played in decks that have access to a lot of card draw because it's in Shaman. So I don't know really. Yeah, I talked to Cora at length last week about this, that I'm not really sure on the card just yet. Obviously, Pinpingho is, and he is the Shaman, so it's hard for me to not defer to his wisdom. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think you cut hexes for Fire Plume Harbinger. And if you do, I don't know what you're expecting to run into where going one turn faster on some of the big elementals wins you out the game.
Well, and that was actually going to be my point, is that the thing about this style of deck is that you do want to win in the mid-game, but you want to win in the mid-game by virtue of hitting big, consistent mid-game turns. Your plays on turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, all so significant for how you actually get aggressive in this matchup. Discounting late-game minions into mid-game minions feels really good in premise, but in practice, now here we are on turn 7, you have a turn 7 Calamos available to you, and it's not going to do anything. It's not going to have the desired effect. So you now have to look at your board state and say, okay, I can continue to discount these cards, but at what point does that discount actually get used? You're going to try and bait out Brawl or Primordial Drake into Sleep with the Fishes. You're going to try to waste a bunch of removal and then be able to hit a whole bunch of big, scary minions all at the same time. If he plays the second Harbinger here, he can actually play Fire Elemental and Blaze Caller in the same turn. In theory, that's really scary, but in practice, is it enough?
I don't have the answer to that question, but I have to tell you, every single time you say bait, I hear bait so much less now than I hear jebaited, because it's said so frequently in the Blizzard Esports office that every time you say it, I'm just like, all I see is the face. It's such a good Twitch emote. You're going to see Blaze Caller come down on the board, and every single time you play a big minion like this, you're like, okay, great, getting some value trades, doing some direct damage, dealing with the board, but it's always so nerve-wracking because you know somewhere, there's Brawls, there's potentially Primordial Drakes and Sleep with the Fishes. Obviously, that's later on, but I do like what Pinpingho here is doing because when I played Elemental Shaman, now I was playing the board control list, which is a little faster, has the Blood Corsair, has the Patches package, you can use Flame Tongue Totem to push early. I would just force that warrior to have the Brawl on 5, and I'm just going. You're just putting on the pressure. Playing slowly against this just doesn't work. Because once the warrior draws through all its cards, you lose as the Shaman.
Yeah, over enough time here, this becomes a match that is fundamentally not unwinnable, but a huge challenge, right, for the Shaman player, because your minions are all going to get just eaten alive by Primordial Drake, by Brawl, potentially by Sleep with the Fishes. All of that just sets up a state where the hero power becomes stronger and stronger and stronger once the quest is complete. That's such an enormous win on the back of that Brawl. You can see even Pinpingho is like, yeah, okay, fine.
That's a mark of Pinpingho being just a good sport. When that happens to me on ladder, I just stand up. I just stand up from my desk. I walk over to the next room. I just take a minute to collect myself, and I'm just like, what did I do to deserve this? I pay my taxes on time. I do nice things. I open doors for people, and then, you lose that Brawl like that, and it's just, well, this is my life now.
Yeah, I feel like you maybe are just not holding enough doors open at that point, because
I don't know. I don't know what card-based karma I need to be working on, but that hurts, especially, it's Ali Armorsmith that survived. It's not even, something small. Ali Armorsmith is frankly just a nuisance.
Yeah, and this is okay. Like the position that Pinpingho's in, where he can just continually refill the board turn on turn here, feels really good because this is not a great board for Primordial Drake. It's not gonna feel really good to have to play the second Brawl right here. If you're in the position of Team Mexico, I think you're looking at this and saying, like, we want to take advantage of the Fiery War Axe. We can't even really get Battle Rage value because we haven't taken any damage prior to getting armor value on the hero. It's gonna just feel slow and grindy, but slow and grindy is what this deck excels at.
Yep, and ye new Spirit Wolves, unfortunately, one of them down. Stone Sentinel is one card, though, that I am kind of changing my opinion about. I'm starting to like it more these days because I think as players continue to try to find out what is the best way to play Shaman right now, because I don't think it's discovered just yet, the ability to put multiple minions on board does at least play into a Bloodlust win condition, so I definitely think there's a lot of interesting opportunity for that piece, but yeah, we see the Primordial Drake come down, and that is just pretty much goodbye board.
Yeah, it's left Pinpingho in a really difficult position here because, yes, he can clear the Ali Armorsmith. The Warrior player is going to be at 47 effective health, and that's a lot even on the back of a board that you can use Bloodlust on. And right now, Pinpingho probably is thinking here, okay, I need to put some things on this board and get control of it back. Servant of Calamos feels like it's a good organic play here because you want to find a second Calamos or another Blaze Caller or something that's significant. Maelstrom Portal and Flametongue will clear the board here, which is nice, but I'm not sure that this is enough in this position. Okay, and the discounted Fire Elemental is nice, but again, like, he's not getting the value he wants out of these cards. And behind this, we also know that Primordial Drake II is waiting to just have a field day with this board.
But that's the important thing to note. Obviously, we know that as casters. For Pinpingho, he's like, okay, well, we saw one Brawl, turn 9. How far into the deck truly is he? Let's just try to build another board. Let's make him have it. And, I really respect this approach. This is all you can do as the Shaman player is, put yourself in a position to where this board isn't truly massacred by Sleep with the Fishes. Primordial Drake Sleep with the Fishes is not a combo that's currently available. So, I like just building this board. Just go, make him have it. If he has it, well, start over again. But at least at this point, from what an Ali Armorsmith cannot win the Brawl.
Right, and I guess it becomes a question of how many times can you refill. Right now, with Servant of Calamos and Calamos himself in hand, he's got one more really good board refill available to him. If this baits out the second Primordial Drake or the second Brawl, that's a really, really good opportunity for Pinpingho to say, okay, you've exhausted your options here. There's just no way that you can keep doing this. And the other thing that Pinpingho has to start and think about is the Warrior is getting pretty close to completing the quest, and that's the point at which this match swings and gets really ugly.
I do want to point out that the way Pinpingho built up this board now, the Drake did come out. Yes, a lot of board is cleared, but he can deal easily with the Primordial Drake. So, again, when it comes to all things Shaman, I just bow my head and I'm saying, Pinpingho, teach me your ways. And we see that this is still a board where, things aren't as bad as they could have been. Getting through a 4-8 turns out is very difficult, as Primordial Drake has illustrated with its ascension to being, frankly, one of the top cards in the set. So you asked earlier if Hex was cut. We now know
it was not.
In our infinite wisdom as casters, it wasn't. Good for Hex.
Yeah, and
still has a job.
This is good, honestly, for Pinpingho, because now it really is just there's one more Brawl. There may be a way for like a Ravaging Ghoul to activate Sleep with the Fishes, but he's in a position where he's actually got a board that has to be answered, and there's very few answers left.
Yeah, Pinpingho just doing everything he can here to continue to push, and like I said, you don't want to be in that situation where you're not pushing as a Shaman. That's just, frankly, how you lose the game. We're going to see the shield block come out from Mexico, just digging. You have a bunch of options. You have that Fiery War Axe. You have the Brawl if you're truly feeling scared, but there's no universe right now where Mexico is feeling scared. 46 health.
Yeah, and like 46 is such a huge number. Like, you look at the board and you say, okay, yes, there's lots of power on board. That's 16 damage, plus the possibility of Bloodlust, or truly technically, even double Bloodlust. And all of that is still not enough damage just on the back of this lone taunt being in play alone.
Yeah, I think so long as you deal with that Flame Tongue Totem, you could go so far as to equip the axe, deal with the Flame Tongue Totem, maybe even execute that Fire Elemental, and that board is looking so much tamer. Off the Discover from the Stonehill Defender, Tarlord is just so big. You know, we were talking about numbers that are big. 46 is big. 11 is also big.
Very big. And I like this execute play. I wondered if Mexico would consider the Ravaging Ghoul just to get the Flame Tongue Totem out of play, but this is the other way to do it, right? Is use the execute and the Fiery War Axe. They've been holding that Fiery War Axe for a long time, so it's good to see it come down. Pin Ping Ho, I don't know what you do here as Pin Ping Ho. I don't think till he's seen that second brawl, he's going to feel comfortable unloading here, but at some point, you're all in one way or the other. Like, now that the quest is complete, now that the Ragnaros hero power is in effect, you've got to start and worry about how am I going to actually do this? Invocation of Fire, probably the least used, I bet you, of the Calamos.
It depends who's playing it. I use that a lot, Kevin. I'm going to level with you. When it comes to doing 6 damage to people's faces, I'm like, where do I sign? Is this free? Oh, I have to pay mana for it? Fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, don't get me wrrong,
yeah.
But this is definitely a position now where Pin Ping Ho has, I would say, basically gone all in. And, I mean, does Mexico choose the brawl? They choose the brawl, yeah. So this is basically an outcome of anything other than Calamos is great. And an outcome of a 1-2 Flame Elemental is probably ideal.
Not the Flame Elemental, man. He's so little. He's not doing anything. You have 38 health. Just leave him be. That poor Flame Elemental, cut down in his prime. Didn't even grow up to be a Fire Elemental.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably needed to go back to school. He just needed a little more education to get to Fire Elemental levels. Hex is not the card that Pin Ping Ho wanted here.
To be fair, I don't know what the card is in this situation. Maybe you bring back your Calamos and make all the 1/1s. Maybe that's the situation you want, but unfortunately, that Calamos is dead. And unless we see a second Servant of Calamos, there's no chance to find another. But he needs to continue just building up this board, and right now he's just pretty much operating on, well, play what's in my hand, hero power, and you know, you have a hero power that makes a minion, and Yinis has a hero power that frankly probably just kills a minion each turn, if not does 8 damage to your face.
And the optimal outcome there, I mean, being able to Hex Tarlord is great, but Pin Ping Ho is just going to look at this and say, what's left? What's left that actually gets me back into this game at a rate that allows me to compete with the Ragnaros hero power? The answer is probably nothing.
I was going to say, I think the play might actually just be Escape Concede. It's a special tech for this sort of situation where you're the deck that's pushing pressure on board and you're out of things to play on the board. But, you know, this again just goes back to why I enjoy Pin Ping Ho so much. I've had the opportunity now across some of these championships to hang out with him while casting, and he is exactly as goofy and good-natured as he looks, and absolutely love the guy. He's taking it in spades as he's talking to the rest of his team.
Yeah, you can tell this is not a situation where he's going, oh, Quest Warrior, what did I do to deserve this? To your point from earlier, he's just saying, okay, I mean, this was going to be a tough matchup no matter how you slice it. He had not 1, not 2, and not 3, but 4 separate major board wipes available to him in double Brawl and double Primordial Drake. Sometimes them's the breaks.
I think they're just laughing on team chat, and Pin Ping Ho says, guys, don't worry, I got it. I got the Control Warrior. You don't have to deal with it anymore. I took it out. It's gone. It can't hurt us anymore.
I took care of it for you, yeah. And that's...
What a guy. What a guy, Pin Ping Ho.
He's just doing this team a solid.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the board here, though, you know, Yinis just has all the time in the world on his side. Gonna go ahead and choose to actually play down the Ravaging Ghoul, draw a card, Battle Rage, and could even go with Sleep with the Fishes if he chooses to here. Would definitely be surprised he's got the minions, and they would be injured. Not a good idea.
Yeah, at this point, like, it just doesn't matter. Mexico's going to get this one. In some respects, I actually think that this is probably okay for Taiwan. They're in a position where they're saying, okay, look, we lose this one, it's over, it's done. But we don't have to deal with Quest Warrior, and Quest Warrior is a really bad matchup for a lot of our other decks. Beating Quest Warrior is a tall order, and if you don't have a specific deck that's really well teched against it, it's going to be very difficult, right? We've seen Quest Warrior be very successful across all sorts of different Hearthstone esports lately, so Pin Ping Ho can say, okay, that's fine. We give them their 1 with Quest Warrior. Let's go and let's try something a little bit more exciting.
Now, I do want to point out, Pimpingo had the option to go with the Druid, obviously chose to go with Shaman, and we knew that was just always going to happen, but I do kind of wonder if there's a point as this tournament goes on where Taiwan says, you know what, Pimpingo, you're not actually allowed to submit Shaman, somebody else submits it and then just doesn't play it, but curious to see how that pans out as a continuous narrative with this Taiwan team.
And I mean, in fairness, they probably didn't necessarily plan on him hitting Warrior. Yeah. Because if they had known that was a likely outcome or something they had planned around, and that was Jade Druid, I think even Pimpingo would go, okay, one time I will play not Shaman.
But is he really the Shaman anymore? Anyway, we're going to head on over to game number 2. It's going to be Epsilon taking on AHQ Roger. Now, Roger is one of my favorite names, the Western world might not have heard of. This is a guy who plays a ton of Rogue. Unsurprising to see him pick it here. Epsilon going to be on Paladin. You know what, I was talking to her, we were just casually exchanging what were our favorite classes in Hearthstone, and I believe she did bring up Paladin, so not too surprising to see this. Roger on Rogue, this is something we have seen before. He really enjoys that Miracle style, but that said, it will be interesting to see whether or not he's kind of buying into the questing Rogue hype.
Yeah, and this matchup is actually going to be very interesting because Paladin is so stable right now. The variants of Paladin, they all do different things, but they do actually have a lot of ability to fight back against Quest Rogue.
All right, let's get to know these players a little bit better here. Epsilon is an extremely well-known Mexican streamer with over 70,000 followers on her Twitch channel. I have watched a few times. It's very entertaining, especially if you speak the language. Go check her out. She has hosted the Copa America Finals twice, and she's participated in numerous Copa America Opens, and she actually represented the Mexican Overwatch World Cup team in 2016, so she's a little bit of a journeyman in terms of what she's doing.
Yeah, and Roger for Taiwan, I mean, he's been well known to finish in Hearthstone Majors quite high, frequently on the ESL Legendary Series. He's been part of AHQ now for multiple years, and he had one of the highest point totals, 10th in the region in Asia Pacific last year.
Yeah, both Roger and Pimpingo kind of became well-known through the ESL Legendary Series back in the day. Pimpingo in Season 1, actually, with what was called the Machine Gun Mage at the time, first utilizing Flamewaker, and then Roger, obviously, in Season 2. So cool to see those guys have continued to make good on kind of that early promise in their careers.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what these players have to offer. I know that Epsilon is very fond of Paladin. I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm more interested to see, actually, what the variant of Rogue is here, because we have consistently been seeing Quest Rogue, but I do think, especially if you are picking it intentionally into Paladin, maybe this is one of the tempo variants that runs Vilespine Slayer. Maybe this is a Miracle variant that's just going to try to win the game before a mid-range Paladin can come online.
Yeah, and Paladin, when the set first came out, when Journey to Angora was first unleashed, Paladin wasn't immediately an overnight popular success. Paladin kind of grew as a result of the way the meta went, which was more focused on questing Rogue, Pirate Warrior, Quest Warrior. So this is very much a response to the meta. So have to think Epsilon feels pretty good if this is questing Rogue coming in with the Paladin. Now, to your point, a couple different ways you can play that Paladin. You could play with the early game Murloc package into the not-so-gentle Megasaur, as I've started calling it. You can play into the very heavy late-game control build, which has at least Trailblazer, Spike Ridge Steed, kind of all those different late-game options. So very curious to see what we get from Epsilon.
Yeah, I mean, my expectation is the mid-range style of Paladin. I think that sort of the build that Savit's popularized that runs like Light Fused Stegodon and stuff is probably the play here. The singleton cards in that deck all do so much work when you're able to sort of set up that mid to late game win condition. But there's so many other things that are sort of unexplored. Like, yes, there is aggro Murloc, but there's also straight up just old school control Paladin. And I mean, I don't think I've seen it done well yet, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility of the Paladin quest eventually becoming playable as well.
Well, let's not go that far, but I do want to point out that in Week 1, we did see Mexico running the more control-oriented Paladin, so that's what they're comfortable on thus far. We see Epsilon chilling there. Again, she is a huge streamer, so go check her out, rocking what is my favorite Hearthstone shirt in terms of the Hearthstone shirt meta, the cupcake shirt. I was rocking that yesterday. I felt more beautiful than I've ever felt in my life, just being a Hearthstone cupcake guy.
I don't know that that's true. I feel like you feel beautiful on a pretty regular basis. But yeah, Epsilon, I'm very excited to see just her playing on this team. It's one of the things that's exciting to us is seeing more and more female streamers and competitors who are really actually very, very talented Hearthstone players.
Yeah, and she was telling me yesterday about how the Mexico team is actually preparing for these tournaments. They have a very much team-centric process when it comes to how they're submitting decks. They actually sit down on a group. They rate what are, at the time of submission, the Tier 1, Tier 2 decks, who plays what. From there, the team actually has to agree. I'll pilot this, you pilot that. And you know, there's a little bit less of an emphasis on who's piloting what because it's worth noting, again, this is a team-based competition, so they're all on comms working together. There is Roger's beautiful face, and it is going to be Quest Rogue, so very interested to see this because, again, Roger, a prolific Rogue player and someone who was very high on Murloc Rogue. Sorry, Murloc Rogue. Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, Murloc Rogue, that was a thing for quite a while. The Water Rogue package, very popular. I do actually think, though, that this will be interesting because this looks... Consecration says this isn't the aggro deck, as does Elder Peacekeeper, but Rockpool Hunter says there is a Murloc package. This is a matchup that can go either way for a variety of reasons, including, like we said earlier, the fact that Elder Peacekeeper and Equality do actually work on minions after the Rogue quest has come online. And Roger in a tough spot here with patches in his opening mulligan.
Yeah, that's definitely not something you want to see. Now, there are versions of Rogue where having patches in the opening is certainly not bad. You know, you get a lot from Cold Blood, respectively, as a card, but this is not a deck that's running Cold Blood. Now, talking a little bit about the Murloc package in Paladin, you know, you tend to see like the very early goings of it, yeah, and then leading into something like Sunkeeper Tarim. And Sunkeeper Tarim is a legendary that takes so much advantage of the fact that Murlocs go wide. Murlocs just get on the board. There's a lot of them. Some of them are very small if you don't hit the crucial buffs. You know, War Leader as an example, Oracle. You're not necessarily seeing these big things that buff the minions, so Sunkeeper Tarim can come down and turn a small board into a relatively intimidating board, while at the same time causing other minions to become less intimidating themselves on your opponent's board.
It is also technically a really good answer to Quest Rogue. If the quest has gone off, he can convert all of those minions into 3/3s and enable really efficient trades for the Paladin player. In Paladin, also one of the decks that does still traditionally run some amount of healing, right? It might be little amounts off of True Silver Champions. Sometimes you see a one of Forbidden Healing as tech. Not uncommon to see a single Lay on Hands, as well as obviously Ragnaros Lightlord. So there's lots of things in this deck that can allow the Paladin player to stabilize if they're able to clear the board, and Rogue, one way or another, will eventually run out of steam.
Yeah, those are all important notes. Now, the Hydrologist came down. We see the Getaway Kodo. Hydrologist has quietly been one of those cards that just kind of has slipped in with this set and been an extremely powerful inclusion for all of these different Paladin decks. Again, generally speaking, you're not looking to actually run many of the Paladin secrets. By virtue of being 1 mana, they're all kind of a little bit like bite-sized secrets compared to the Mage and the Hunter packages, but when you're playing a card that is a 2/2 for 2, it's a Murloc, it fits in, it has synergies, and it also just gives you a secret, well, suddenly Getaway Kodo, you know, Noble Sacrifice, Repentance, all those secrets that seem kind of small on their own are suddenly very much worth having.
Right, so the thing about Paladin secrets in my mind has always been that when you could play Secret Paladin and you could just dump them all with Mysterious Challenger, that was great, right? But outside of that scenario, they're very particular tech cards, right? There are times and places where one of them is the right answer and does something really powerful for you, but just as often, there are times where if you had put Getaway Kodo naturally into your deck, it eats up a spot for another card that you might have wanted more. It doesn't necessarily enable the things you need. Being able to flexibly pick among a set of them when you play Hydrologist can be very powerful, and it does allow you to set some stuff up in the late game where maybe Eye for an Eye, or the threat of playing around Eye for an Eye, which is a card that no one would organically put in their deck, actually stops and gives you pause because you have to think about, am I at risk of killing myself?
Yeah, that is a huge issue with Eye for an Eye, especially for some of the Freeze Mage decks, specifically the versions of Time Warp Mage that were kind of popular that were running Giants. You're just suddenly like, oh, I can't actually hit my opponent because Ice Block won't actually pop on my turn, and then suddenly things go bad. So Hydrologist definitely changing up the way the game looks for Paladin. Now, over for Roger, it looks like he's just going to slam Mimic Pot here because his hand doesn't necessarily give him a super intuitive line. Now, Igneous Elemental with the Firefly in hand, suddenly there is a road to activate the Crystal Core. But the problem is that most of the time when you're playing against the Quest Rogue, your answer to Igneous Elemental is just to take 2 damage and you know, try not to put things on the board they can trade with, because if you just buy yourself time and Igneous Elemental isn't getting popped, suddenly it's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, and the thing about Roger's hand right now is he doesn't have all of the really cool follow-up to Crystal Core once it comes into play. Even if Crystal Core ends up coming out soon, it's not coming out early, right? This is not going to be one of those situations where it's coming down immediately on turn 5, there's no prep in hand, and there's not a whole bunch of charge minions behind this. One of the downsides in some ways of running things like Igneous Elemental or even Bylefin Tidehunter. Like, you can run other versions of this deck that run more early game, more charge. This is a reliable, consistent version where you're pretty confident that you're going to complete the quest at a fixed upper boundary in terms of times. Like, you're not going to wait forever to complete it. It's going to get done. The flip side of that being you're never going to just slam it down early.
So Epsilon chose there, instead of to make the 1/1 Silverhand Murloc, to go ahead and play Getaway Kodo, and I don't mind it because I don't think in that position it's an obvious telegraph as to what it is. So just playing it down, you don't have anything in hand that's buffing Murlocs, you don't have a War Leader, you don't have a Seer, so it's not necessarily something where you're looking to get maximum value from that 1/1 Murloc, so don't dislike the secret there. And Roger plays down the Flame Elemental and is just looking to stick the Igneous Elemental. There are things on board now that he can begin looking to trade with, to pop that Igneous Elemental.
Yeah, the Igneous Elemental is going to die one way or the other here, which means that there's going to be lots of Flame Elementals, lots of ways for Roger to finish the quest. But again, it's not going to be early. Even if it gets popped this turn, the quest isn't getting completed next turn unless the next card in this deck is Preparation, which means that Epsilon has time to develop a board, push some damage. I wouldn't be at all upset here if she just elected to equip that True Silver Champion and push as much face damage as possible here with it.
Yeah, you could do that. I don't mind it here for the reasons kind of you stated here. It's just, look, let's just go. You're pushing pressure. You're the one with the board. The Peacekeeper doesn't really change any dynamic. At this point, if the Igneous Elemental goes into the damaged Murloc there, well, I mean, it kills the Murloc, but nothing really changes. You're not looking to pop the Elemental, and life goes on. You continue pushing. Next turn, she will have access to Sunkeeper Tarim, so not really a lot of options, actually, kind of in terms of what she's looking to do.
And bear in mind, Peacekeeper and Tarim are both cards that are especially valuable to her after Crystal Core comes out. So at this point, I think she's just looking at it and saying, okay, with True Silver Champion equipped, we're 99% confident as Team Mexico that there's not weapon removal in this rogue deck. So we're threatening lots of damage. We're asking openly if Taiwan can complete the quest this turn. Because if that's the situation that we're up against, we're maybe in trouble. But if it's not, over the next 2 turns, we can kill Taiwan or certainly get them very, very close. And that's the situation that you don't want to be in as Taiwan, is just having your health total chipped down aggressively without being able to respond to it.
All right, so Stun Tusk Boar comes down, hits face, and at this point, Roger's just pretty much playing things just to, start getting on the board, start lessening some of the threats. 16 is not a particularly glamorous health total to be at, so he is just pretty much playing things down, how to play things down.
Yeah, I mean, going wide on the board is not a bad idea, because if there's no consecration on the Paladin's side, then this isn't all getting cleared, and you're always super leery of, can we afford to leave this many minions up against a rogue? If next turn they can play something like a Shadow Step that allows us to complete that quest, if they have Shadow Step and Prep in hand right now, then the quest goes off, charge minions come down, there could just be a one-turn kill possibility available to this rogue player. But the flip side of that is, obviously, from the position we're in, there's 9 damage on this board. That puts Taiwan at 7 health. And there's a few ways here that the outcome of this might end up being that Taiwan, even if they do execute the quest next turn, still dies the following turn.
I don't mind the way Roger approached that turn, because now looking at it on the board, there's nothing really that screams like, oh, hit me with a True Silver, you're not actually accomplishing much. And if the Consecration did come down, then the Igneous Elemental is popped. Suddenly you had the Flame Elementals, you're at least completing the quest. So I don't mind the way Roger kind of went wide on the board there. And we are even going to see, it looks like the True Silver Champion just put into that Firefly. Epsilon just basically just hedging the board, and we actually see Roger celebrating there, I'm imagining because of the Vanish.
Yeah, I mean, Vanish off the top here, this is one of the best possible outcomes for Taiwan, because they get to just sort of hard reset the game state. They're immediately going to be able to complete the quest next turn. They have charge minions in hand now and can even bounce the charge minions with the Ferryman. And Paladin doesn't get to have the board presence that is currently allowing them to dominate this game state. If all that the Paladin players can do is you know, throw out a couple of Murlocs the following turn when there are 5/5 minions on the board, that doesn't really matter. That doesn't slow down the rogue at all. This is what, as a rogue player, this is exactly what you want. You want to be able to put all sorts of stuff on the board and have them all convert into 5/5s. The Vanish becomes a solution to a number of problems if anything that does threaten them comes down, because there's not going to be the same aggression out of the Paladin. They're not going to be able to close out the game by putting down charge minions or damage spells, or, you know, even going face with weapons just isn't going to do the job here.
All right, so wide board here for Taiwan. Now, Spikeridge Steed. Spikeridge Steed is a very powerful spell. It was one that, you know, wasn't necessarily thought super highly of with the release of Journey to Un'Goro. I feel like that's actually kind of the theme of a lot of the Paladin cards, like Rockpool Hunter, Spikeridge Steed, Hydrologist. These were all cards that people kind of looked at and thought, like, okay, well, you know, maybe that's not necessarily that powerful. Obviously, Rockpool Hunter being a neutral, but, you know, they've all found a home in this style of deck, which has become extremely powerful. And if you're not expecting the Vanish, Spikeridge Steed feels like a really good card.
Yeah, I like the Curator play here. I like trying to find some more answers, refill the hand a little bit. Stampeding Kodo is an interesting tech choice. Primordial Drake makes a lot of sense because it's a great combo with what we presume will be an equality. Preparation, though, for Taiwan here is so scary. They've only got the 2 charge minions and fundamentally just the 1 bounce effect. They can't use Vanish this turn, but they can just do so much with all of the tools they have in hand now to start and just threaten Mexico with the inevitability of, you can't clear our board as fast as we can kill you.
I mean, it's worth noting now, they can't use both. They can't use Prep, Crystal Core, and Vanish. They're 1 mana short of being able to do all that. It is looking like, though, they are going to activate that preparation and just go from there. But to your point, even if they use just 1 spell, there's enough mana flexibility with the rest of the minions to just begin doing things. First step, though, is bringing that Crystal Core online.
And I really like this. I think, you know, the attack with the deckhand, the Ferryman to bounce it, Patches. Unfortunate that they have to play Patches, because that's one of the major swings in terms of just overall power for the Crystal Core Rogue, right? Is that just pops out of the deck and is a 5/5 for free. But even still here, I mean, this is a cleared board and 20 power with likely more behind it. They can attack face, Vanish, and use the charge minions to win the game here in the situation they're in. That's a 1-turn kill. And Epsilon, unfortunately, doesn't really have any great answers here.
Primordial Drake would deal with 2 of these things, and it's probably just the best option going forward. And then you basically are just hoping that the rest of Taiwan's hand is pretty dry. Although, again, because Questing Rogue is so focused on the win condition, you know that it's probably minions or things that draw into minions or Vanish, essentially. So it's hard to imagine a world, having seen 1 preparation, where you're just hoping, okay, it's double prep and then nothing. It's just a blank card that has no text on it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is unfortunately, though, one of the things about Questing Rogue that's very challenging is that once you've exhausted your hand, it's not like they're going to suddenly top deck a sprint and be able to refill here. Like, Vanish is the only play that they have available to them here, and they can push for the sum total here of 10 damage this turn, 11 if you count the weapon charge. That's not a lot, and it doesn't actually win them the game over the next couple of turns. They have to still worry about, like, if an equality or something comes out from Mexico, like, they just lose.
Yeah, but at the same time, the Igneous Elemental represents another 2 minions coming into hand, so you're just continuing to play 5/5s. I agree, it's not like they're sitting on a wealth of options, but what they actually have right now isn't terrible either. So we'll have to see how Epsilon chooses to deal with this. Now, Ragnaros the Light Lord will heal you back up to 30, and it does pretty reasonably challenge the things on board. The interesting point to me is that you can't get a value trade with the patches off of it. If you trade the patches into the Light Lord, like, that's just the death of patches. But I'm trying to think if there's a better play in this situation.
I mean, I do think this Elder Peacekeeper makes a lot of sense, because you can make it so that the Igneous Elemental isn't getting good trades, or you can just disable
Kodo.
patches.
Yeah, you can just Kodo here. And yeah, that's an old-timey strat right there. Back in the day, if you're curious how Paladin used to deal with the Ragnaros when they had no direct removal, that was it, man. You just make Ragnaros 1 attack, and you just slam that Kodo, and you say, get out of here, Fire Lord.
Yeah, back in the 1920s of Hearthstone, that was the only way around. Smuggler's Run absolutely not going to help here, unfortunately. So Ferryman just to fish for another card is again, just kind of Taiwan's only play, unfortunately. And the more of these things that hit the board, the more I begin to think, having seen the Vanish, Mexico will feel really safe to play Spike Reached Steed. Sunkeeper just, once the hand is empty and there's nothing to follow it up, Sunkeeper just stops this whole plan dead in its tracks. Primordial Drake will enable some efficient trades, and Ragnaros Lightlord, I mean, one heal to face, and this whole plan sort of starts to look like it's going to fall apart.
Yeah, this is suddenly turning into a little bit of a grindy game here because, as you pointed out, Taiwan's not drawing more resources. Smuggler's Run does nothing.
No, the possibilities that they could have gotten something really, really good for a minion off of the Swashbuckler just didn't pan out, right?
They could have had a 5-5 Tyrion Fordring.
Could have been a 5-5 Tyrion, but I mean, it could have been a 5-5 anything, and even the ability to play their own Alder Peacekeeper or something else would have been great, would have been fine. Whereas in this situation, they're sort of left with just no really good options.
All right, so Murloc War Leader off the top there would only affect the Vile Inquisitor. Could use the hero power to bump out the 1/1 Murloc token, but looking like she is not going to be using that. Yeah. I was going to say, I think at this point, if you just clear the board, if you just start going for it, you have to feel like your odds are pretty decent that that's going to get you through. And just electing to put up the wall and actually win the game, because we can't count, it's lethal, Kevin.
Yeah, I wondered if we should point that out.
No, just interject. Just go for it. Yeah, I was so focused on the board there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Spike Ridge Steed, true silver champion getting through, and Epsilon celebrating. Mexico now up 2-0 on Taiwan.
And that's not at all what I was expecting coming into this series. I definitely thought that Taiwan was sort of the stronger team. This matchup in particular could have gone either way. And frankly, it's the variant on Quest Rogue that Taiwan decided to bring that I think they got punished for.
Well, and in general, Quest Rogue, one of the things that you kind of have to realize when you're playing against a deck is a lot of times like it's playing to the win condition. It has that one thing, but outside of that, if it doesn't go fast enough, it doesn't necessarily get going, early on enough. I mean, it just loses. Especially, like I said, Paladin kind of rose to popularity in a meta that was just, the ladder was infested with questing rogues.
Yeah, there's so many taunts, and just all of the answers that actually work on the 5/5 post-Crystal Core bodies exist in Paladin, so.
Yeah, congratulations to Mexico, again, up 2-0. We're going to get into the next match, though, and this is it. If Mexico wins this, they win the series, and they will take it pretty decisively.
Yeah, I would be very excited to see them clean sweep, although I do think that Taiwan obviously has some stuff up their sleeve here, and Rogue into Mage is one of those matchups where, if the Mage has the right toolkit, there's lots of ways that they can punish Quest Rogue. If this is Miracle Rogue, that doesn't do phenomenally well unless it's like the old school style of freeze that we saw coming out from Brazil. I don't think that's what we're likely to see here. So this can go either way, right? If Rogue just explodes in the early game, they win. If this is like a more tempo-oriented freeze mage, the style that we were expecting with, Medivh's Valet, could go either way.
Yeah, we see here for Empanizado. Empanizado has experience playing in smaller tournaments, but the Hearthstone Global Games is really his first foray into a marquee Hearthstone tournament. Does have previous experience, however, playing chess, and loves to hang out at cenotes in Mexico, which are sinkholes that expose groundwater underneath that are often used for swimming. And honestly, that sounds pretty awesome.
It does sound pretty awesome. I feel like every time I'm here, we have somebody with former chess experience. I remember betting on Chess Dude in HCT last year. Tom, though, I mean, this is Tom60229. Do we need to introduce him at all? He's got multiple Premier Tournament wins in Onog, in the Asus Rogla back in 2015. He's won majors in Malaysia, as well as the Taiwanese World Championship Qualifier. And for those of you who haven't been keeping track, because it is something that people maybe forget, the numbers in his name are actually meaningful. They refer to his grade 2 class number, School 6, grade 2, class 29.
And I think, obviously, worth pointing out that he has the most tournament victories and the most money earned in Hearthstone in all of Taiwan. So we have kind of seen with Asia Pacific, there are these players who are kind of at the very top level, who in terms of earnings, in terms of merit, tournament victories, that it seems like a lot of these Asia Pacific countries have some of at least one player per country that's kind of the keystone flagship player for their country.
Right, and I mean, Taiwan as a country is not a slouch. Like, Tom isn't the best of a country of people who are average at Hearthstone. Like, Taiwan has a number of very talented players. We commented coming into this series that Taiwan is a nation that has a lot of experience, access to a very diverse meta. I'm really, frankly, thinking that Tom is probably among the strongest players in global games.
Yeah, and as we go into this, I do want to point out, we don't know the deck list, but Tom, in the first series he played in the Global Games tournament, was piloting that Freeze Mage, so have to expect that that's what he's going to be on again. Tom absolutely loves control decks. Mexico, coming into this, we talked about how they had brought kind of more aggressive decks, and the only thing they'd brought that was a little slower was that control Paladin. So it's interesting when we were talking about what changes would they need to make to have success. We are seeing changes. They're actually just going for more of those kind of standard decks right now that we're seeing all over ladder. You know, they went for the Quest Warrior. We saw the Murloc Paladin. We're seeing Rogue now, presumably Quest Rogue. So it's kind of interesting how the shift has gone from them trying to bring their own stuff a week ago to suddenly bringing more standard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the evolution that we've seen in the Un'Goro meta up to this point has just sort of allowed everybody to figure out kind of what do they want to bring and how do they target things, which is really the thing that we didn't know 2 weeks ago, was how do you target a particular deck in these lineups. Tom, I expect to be playing a more secret package-driven Freeze Mage, and I do think that gives him a lot of options. He's also just a very talented player. Like, the level of decision-making necessary to play Freeze Mage of any variety at a high level is something that we've been talking about since the beginning of Hearthstone, how it's just one of the most difficult decks to pilot correctly, and I trust Tom to do it.
Yeah, Tom, obviously, as we said, a very storied control player. Now, one thing I do want to point, it's clear, you know, in his first match, his skills have not gone to rust since last we've seen him, but his hair game, you know, I'm a little worried about it. You know, he used to kind of boast this elaborate, almost Frodan-esque hairstyle, and it just, you know, it seems like he's at home, he's casual, he's comfortable in his jammies, and we're just seeing very casual Tom hair.
I just don't know that you're allowed to lecture anybody on hair game, Rob.
You know, from the ears down, pretty hairy guy. So I do have. Well, talk about this anyway. Yeah. So Tom, very comfy at home when he's playing with the rest of his friends on voice comms.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom is definitely going to be the player to watch in this series, and I'm excited to see what he's got for us.
Yeah, and you know, if it is questing rogue for Empanizada, questing rogue, as we talked about, is preyed upon a lot of times by freeze mages. So, okay, we are actually going to see Miracle Rogue now versus this freeze mage. We see Alex Straza, we see the barrier. Those are kind of key giveaways. This, in general, is an interesting matchup to me because the Miracle Rogue has finite amounts of damage, and they oftentimes just have to go and try to commit to early Van Cleaves, just trying to put things on the board that the freeze mage can't deal with, potentially deal with a Doomsayer with a sap, whatever it takes to get the Van Cleave to survive. Otherwise, the freeze mage is allowed to kind of assert its agenda and overall win.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those situations where it's going to be difficult, I think, for Miracle Rogue unless they get a really good early game advantage, because Freeze now just has so many tools that do so much, and I'm really surprised here to see Vilespine Slayer in this Rogue deck.
I've seen at least, I think Casey's version had like one copy, and generally I go to Casey for Rogueless. I have seen more of it cropping up, but I do want to point out, there's the potential for a turn 1 Edwin Van Cleave. You'd be 6/6, you'd be pushing a lot of damage against the Freeze Mage. You effectively understand that the only thing that's going to slow you down is a Frostbolt. Do you go for it? Do you pull the trigger on this?
I mean, in Mexico's position, up as far as they are, I think taking that kind of risk is exactly what you do. I think you look at this situation and you say, what are we scared of? We're scared of back-to-back Frostbolts? It's go time. This is an opportunity for us to assert ourselves in this game, in this series, and Tom's hand doesn't have answers to this.
I would expect no less from a man wearing stylish glasses like Empanizado. Big fan. We're going to see the Primordial Glyph come out. He's digging for Frostbolt. Mirror images, though, also really quality in terms of just stalling the Edwin Van Cleave.
I mean, it's tough, right? Because discounting on Forbidden Flame does nothing, and a 4-mana Meteor is great and will answer this Van Cleave, but not for another 2 turns. And,
yeah, and he already has the Fireball if he wants to go that road.
Yeah, it doesn't really do what he needs. So the Mirror Image just going to hopefully prevent some of this chip damage, and the other thing, I guess, that it's nice for is that you know that the Rogue has just burned a lot of cards, right? They've spent a lot of resources to get this 6/6 on the board. There's likely not a really good turn 2 follow-up.
Yeah, we see the Arcane Giants in hand. Arcane Giants very popular in this deck. You know, obviously you're playing so many different spells. The cost of the Arcane Giant just gets so low to where you're essentially playing them for free. Generally, you're going to play both on the same turn, possibly with another big threat. And then the Vilespine Slayer works great for dealing with Doomsayers.
Yeah, I mean, Vilespine Slayer is just such a scary good card. I mean, I remember listening to Dean talk about it when this card got unveiled, and it just seems insane to me that we took a 5-mana spell in Assassinate and made it a combo effect on a 3/4 minion.
I mean, that is an assassinate on a spider tank. Let that sink in. If spider tank wasn't horrifying enough back in the days of GVG, cost 2 more mana, now it gets assassinate attached to it.
And let's be honest, I mean, Assassinate was not a bad card. It was just often too slow, and there were too many things that had persistent board presence or death rattles or whatever where you couldn't use Assassinate. This is not one of those cards. This is. I mean, Vilespine Slayer does all of that and puts a body on the board. So I mean, now Tom probably forced to Fireball the Van Cleef. There's really no other good line of play here. He just can't afford to keep taking 6 damage per turn, but leaving a questing adventure up also doesn't feel really good.
I really like this play from Empanazato. Like this is basically understanding like, okay, turn 4 is here. You know, he took the mirror images. It's probable that Tom can actually just Fireball this Edwin Van Cleef, but if he does, then he's leaving the questing adventure up, which to your point is not really something you ever want to be doing. You know, he doesn't know what is in Mexico's hand, so I think at the end of the day, you kind of arrive at Fireball the Edwin Van Cleef because, to your point, you don't want to be taking 6 damage. And the problem becomes, if that questing adventure goes off, you have no answer to it. And wow, it looks like Tom's just considering Novice Engineering here and then assume the Valet is going to connect with the questing adventure.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, in a way, this is probably the technically correct play, assuming that your long-term game plan allows you to get out of this, because the questing adventurer could have grown to be out of range of the Valet. Edwin Van Cleef is never growing to be out of range of a Fireball. So he's making the play that facilitates his longer-term strategy the best at the expense of potentially 6 more face damage and being threatened with just all this additional damage from a rogue. Having said that, this more tempo rogue style with the Vilespine Slayer, with the Arcane Giant, it doesn't have the big swing turn, right? It doesn't have the same ability to just kind of explosively deal a ton of damage in one turn. So fundamentally, I think Tom is making a correct choice here. I think he's saying, let's just bide our time. Being at 18 health is not worse for us than...
I think that's kind of the big question there is, do you think that questing adventure is going to get big enough to justify being down to 18 health? And that, I mean, 18 health is honestly not a super scary number, but I guess that's the consideration I make there, is just dealing with the Fireball. You know what kind of rogue you're playing against, I think, by what you've seen. So if they go all in and they make that questing adventure very large, odds are they're probably not either going to be able to do it, or they're going to expend so many resources that once you actually do deal with the questing adventure, like, that's probably game. But to your point, I think this is the defining merit of what Tom did, is he had a clear answer for questing adventure and then Edwin Van Cleef. He didn't potentially have it if he dealt with a Van Cleef that turn and the questing adventure got really large. So just goes to show how many different ways you can approach these plays.
Yeah, I mean, he basically looked at it and said, I'm willing to take the 2 to 3 additional damage the subsequent turn to prevent the game from snowballing in a way that I can't recover from, especially when you're looking at your own hand and you're seeing 3 cycle cards and a Blizzard.
Yep. Yeah, that is definitely not something you want to be seeing going into dealing with potential of a really large questing adventure. So in the meantime here, the pressure from Empanazato is kind of dried up.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge here, unfortunately, is that you need to hang on to Razor Petal and Preparation as ways to get value off of your Auctioneer. You certainly don't want to waste Vilespine Slayer for a 3-4 body for tempo. None of this feels great, but it all enables Taiwan to just start doing some digging. And what you have to be most scared of here is, while you did effectively bait out a Fireball with Edwin Van Cleef, we are starting to approach that sequence of turns where you now have to be doing the math around, okay, how much of that hand is burn? Is Alexstrasza available? Because Alexstrasza into burn is the win condition for this style of mage, and this rogue doesn't have answers to that. There's no way for a rogue player to heal. There's no way for the rogue player to disable the ice block. So all this card draw is nice and allows the rogue to sort of look for more options down the road. But if you're in Tom's position, you get to play as if you're in control of this game right now.
Yeah, interesting choice there by Mexico to just go ahead and jam down the Gadgets and Auctioneer. They knew that realistically they could only play the 2 spells unless they drew another Preparation, at which point you could have obviously chained together some more spells. But going ahead and deciding that right there, the card draw is what they valued more. And, you know, they did get some good pieces. They're discounting their Arcane Giants.
Excuse me.
Don't mind this so much.
Yeah, Valet Ping here is just a really efficient way to get rid of the Auctioneer, because the alternative, unfortunately, in hand is the other Fireball, which even with Pyroblast available now, I don't think they can afford to do. You're still looking for Alexstrasza, you're still looking for more cycle. Second Auctioneer available for Mexico is pretty good, but I expect them to just sit on this one, to be honest. I think with Thalnos in play, your Razor Petals are really scary, and they're just good tools for clearing some of what's on this board. Razor Petals and Patches are great ways to answer the board. I don't think you can afford to play your second Auctioneer naked and get one spell cast
I mean, he's
off.
wearing clothes, Kevin. That Auctioneer is wearing clothes.
It's like a vest. It's hardly clothes. It's just a very interesting... Okay, so they're going to go for it.
It's like vest and bracers. I'm just pointing that out. Sorry, I don't mean to derail, but...
I'm just saying, man, you go out on the street in vest and bracers. This is good. Counterfeit coin off the top, I think you absolutely go for here because Mexico just needs to do as much cycling as possible.
It's a tabard. Because, you know, it sees it goes down to the... I just want to point that out. That backstab.
Goblin Fashion is just outside of my wheelhouse here.
Ooh, you could take a freezing potion. You have
just
a backstab.
Just a cycle, yeah. I think that's the correct answer. It seems that Mexico agrees. Like, they just want to dig here, and they want to find everything they can. Sherazin coming into hand is nice. That's a really good card in this matchup because you've got lots of cheap cards. You can just keep bringing it back. There's a future here where Mexico's going to just slam an Arcane Giant and Sherazin and say, okay, now what can you do?
Yeah, and at that point, you're... I want to point out this deck, actually, the way it's running, this is not a typical Freeze Mage list, at least the ones that I've seen. It's kind of more sliding into the range of it has some aggro potential. We did see the Mana Worm. We haven't seen a Doomsayer just yet. We haven't seen Frost Nova, so it seems like we're kind of learning about this deck on the fly, but it does seem like it's kind of the in-between of the aggro mage package versus the true control Freeze Mage package.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you've seen now Ice Barrier, which I don't think is considered necessarily standard if you want to go the more aggro route in Mage right now. We also haven't seen Arcanologist, which I would be surprised if it's not in the deck and they just haven't lucked into one yet.
I mean, not having Arcanologist in 2017 is just baffling to me. It is so powerful. It is such a good minion, so I would be really surprised. That said, you know, I have seen crazier things. Looks like we're going to see the Loot Hoarder Ice Barrier ping. Kevin, why don't you get rid of that Auctioneer?
Because in Taiwan's position, I don't think you can. I think you have to look at this and say, this is not a miracle deck. We're not going to see like Leroy Coldblood coming out. We have to just deal with the reality that if they want to cycle, they have to cycle. The burn we have in hand, we need to win the game. And you can't afford to expend it for anything other than winning the game. It's tricky. It feels bad. You very rarely want to leave an Auctioneer up under any circumstance, but I don't think they have a choice. Ice Barrier seems like an odd choice, given that it's very unlikely that the Mage player will ever activate it.
Yeah, I was really thinking, though, okay, Cult Sorcerer, the Eviscerate does more damage, the Fan of Knives does more damage. But Empanizado just choosing to go with that Ice Barrier there just to add himself some more protection. But yeah, I definitely agree that it seems like an odd choice given that you could have taken the extra spell damage. And, you know, a 3-2 minion, if it dodges Blizzard, it's probably just going to get in there once.
I mean, I guess it's a way to cycle, right, with the Auctioneer on board. So maybe he's looking to just jam a couple more spells here and get some more cycle happening. That looks like he's going to just quickly sneak out the extra couple of spells here. The Arcane Giant and Sherazin come down. So this is now the position where Tom is looking at this board and going, okay, like, we're down 2-0. Our hand is not good. There's not lethal in play because obviously there's an Ice Block up, but there's lethal-looking damage on this board. This Arcanologist is kind of too little too late now because it's not going to hit anything.
I like the read from Mexico because, you know, they came into this thinking, okay, this is a Freeze Mage. They're acting with that information, obviously Hearthstone being, you know, kind of an information war at its core. Then they see the Mana Worm. They're like, okay, well, something's up. Maybe they cut something to make room for the Mana Worm. Maybe we are not going to run into the Frost Nova Doomsayer package. And I like what they did there. They didn't have the second Arcane Giant, so they couldn't combine it all into one just massive, you know, burst of 8/8 Giants all over the place, but they decided, like, okay, we're going to put out some pressure on the board. We're going to see what they do. And at this point, they're knocking on the door. And that's what you have to be doing against any of the Mage decks that have Ice Block, because I'm at this point afraid to say Freeze Mage because I'm just seeing weird stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, so this is nice. Another freezing potion off the Swashbuckler. There's lots of cycle available to Mexico here, but at this point, like, their deck is getting super thin. They've got a big board. They need to hold on to a lot of these cards as ways to reactivate Sherazin, as ways to activate the Vilespine Slayer after Alexstrasza comes down. And if you're Tom in this situation, I think you're just looking at this and saying, I think we just win, because Alexstrasza is going to come down. you've got Fireball and Ice Block as a follow-up, and then Pyroblast as another follow-up. I think you're just saying, unless there's something we don't know, this is a one game.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I mean, you're setting up the win condition as Freeze Mage, which is kind of the when you look down the priority list, it's don't die, draw cards, find the line that allows you to do enough damage to win. And in this deck, unless there's some shenanigans off Hallucination, you're not really expecting anything. Maybe Swashbuckler gives them the potential for Ice Block, but that might be why we saw Mexico take the Ice Barrier, just thinking some of that damage may come from the ground. At least we can nullify it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if anything, the biggest play around here for Taiwan now is, did they luck into a counterspell? Because that would be something that would actually screw up the entire plan here for a Freeze Mage.
Yeah.
But as it stands, I mean, we pop the block here the following turn. If they have the second block and burn, we just got to keep throwing damage at this block, pop it, clear the board, and then there's just Pyroblast, and that's the game. And there's no resource that Rogue can tap into that prevents that. They can't bounce the Swashbuckler and look for some way to stay alive. They can't find that Ice Block. They can't find a counterspell. I mean, you can sap this Alexstrasza, but I mean, at this point, I don't think they can play spells. I don't think they want to cycle any deeper into this deck because they don't want to take fatigue damage. If anything, they actually want to leave minions on the board and try to get them to trigger the Ice Barrier.
That is one of those edge case things with Gadgets and Auctioneer that you always have to be aware of is, yeah, if it doesn't die, you're like, okay, great, I'm still cycling. But if you start cycling into fatigue, well, that suddenly gets very bad unless you find a way to close out the game against your opponent. And that's the problem with Ice Block, is more often than not, Ice Block just says, well, you actually can't because you just have to deal with the fact that the opposing hero is just immune for a turn.
Yeah, and I just don't see a way out here for Mexico. I think this is played exactly into the strategy that Taiwan wanted, despite the fact that their opening looked really, really thin on paper, and they were really struggling because they just kept hitting cycle. The reality is now they've got the tools they need. If you're Taiwan here, you have to think this is it. We've got them.
Yeah, Tom's just very much in that's it, we got him pose. Like, he's got his arms back. He's like, man, you know what I really want to do? Put on a DVD after this. What have I not watched lately? Maybe just rewatch Lord of the Rings trilogy. Maybe just pop on something. But
you don't think he'd be watching Frozen?
I'm not playing into your game. I make enough bad jokes of my own. We don't need yours. This is why Core is here, to balance it out. This is what happens when we have two Blizzard employees on the desk. We just make bad dad jokes. But yeah, Taiwan just has to equip the block at this point and, hit Fireball and ping, I believe, and that should be it. But again, because they don't know what the secret is, they have to test.
Yeah, and this is fine because Fireball and Pyroblast is still lethal. So this is actually nice. It's clean. It's mana efficient. The 9 health is not a big deal. And unless this Swashbuckler does something incredible, then Taiwan gets to put themselves on the board, and Mexico has to fight their way back into this series.
All right, here is that Swashbuckler, and off of it we see Mana Worm. No. Although it would have been good in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, it could have been great.
Yeah.
Some 15 or so turns ago. At this point, the dust has settled, and Mexico has done everything they can with the tools available to them. But Taiwan successfully navigates this matchup, gets on the board, and we're going to go to a game number 4.
Again, I just love Tom's posture. He's like, oh, this was so easy, guys. Come on, how are you losing? We should be winning. Tom is that guy who just, all he does is win, 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 no matter what.
Yeah, he's feeling really good. He was able to close this out. There's the outside possibility this is an ice block, but Pyroblast will determine that no, it is not.
So, Taiwan now on the board. Mexico still in charge in this series. It's important for them to maintain composure and go into the next match feeling they can win it, but again, Tom, just everything looks like this was scripted. He's like, yeah, hand kind of sucks, but we'll just draw like Straza and just, put him to 15 and kill him.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to get back on the board and just navigate that. Of all the insane things, it ended up being that Blizzard from the opening mulligan actually was just in the right place at the right time. And when you hit a mulligan that has Blizzard and Cycle, as a Freeze Mage, you're feeling pretty bad, right? Arcanologist comes up late. You didn't get the valet value when you wanted it. You're forced to take chip damage from a 6/6 Edwin Van Cleef multiple times, and yet still worked out in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to dig into your deck if you just draw what you need in the first place. So we're going to head on over to match number 4, though. It is going to be between Irvin G and Malagos Taiwan. Irvin G electing to go with the Priest, Malagos Taiwan on that Warrior. I want to point out small bit of trivia here. Irvin G was actually the guy who constructed that Hunter deck, the Ysera deck. So, Irvin G has some unusual tastes. I think Priest is a great place for him to kind of show those off because Priest is very much a class that, in a good way, is kind of in flux right now.
And I mean, when you think about it, if the mage they're running here was its own variant of like a secret freeze mage, and we're operating under the assumption that Taiwan is probably running Quest Warrior, that's not a great matchup for them, and we've seen that go poorly elsewhere already tonight. But Priest has a whole bunch of really, really good tools for dealing with a lot of the stuff that's going to come down from Quest Warrior. Being able to Shadow Word Pain and Ally Armorsmith feels really good.
All right, let's go ahead and get to know the players. Irvin G has the highest Hearthstone Championship Tour point earner from Mexico in 2016 with 25 total points, so good on him, obviously out there repping Mexico in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. He already has almost 20 points this year, so he's well on pace to eclipse his performance from last year. And want to point out, Irvin G also has some major tournament experience competing in the Copa America qualifiers.
And Malagos Taiwan, obviously a name that we recognize from last summer's Asia Pacific Summer Championship. Clearly a big fan of Ysera, but less than he is of Malagos.
I think you have to read that in the TJ voice. He'd be like, his favorite card is, you guessed it, Ysera. Just kidding, it's Malagos.
I can't do a
I was going to say, I don't have the
TJ
TJ voice, but it's
it.
The TJ mannerism is very laid back, and you just kind of like look at the camera, and you just kind of...
Yeah, you do the TJ and just kidding. It's Malagos.
I very much value what TJ brings to the broadcast in terms of these facts. Malagos, Taiwan has on numerous occasions said that he's a #1 fan of Malagos. So at this point, unfortunately, the poor Blue Dragon doesn't really have a home in any of the decks, but surely he'll bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to say that Malagos wouldn't be viable in certain versions of Rogue or Druid or things right now. It just doesn't have the same combo potential that it maybe had in years gone by. But I mean, Malagos Rogue, all the tools that make that work are still technically available. It's just not super popular right now.
I was going to say, we're still so young into the Journey Twin Goro meta, so obviously potential, I think the one thing that's kind of a little bit damning for him is the lack of Emperor Thaurissan, which obviously for other decks outside of Rogue certainly made Malagos a little more popular.
Yeah, Malagos, because it's so expensive, very difficult to get meaningful value off of, so it's going to be interesting. But I do think that this is going to be fun because we haven't actually seen Priest yet tonight.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Group G standings real quick, just to let you know how this matchup has implications. We see Taiwan currently tied with Turkey for first place in the spot with a 1-0 record. We're in the very early going of Stage 1 of the Hearthstone Global Games. Poland lost in Week 1, but was able to bounce back in Week 2. Singapore, Mexico, and Vietnam still not on the board. Obviously, Mexico looking to change that tonight and one win away from doing just that. Now, we're seeing a lot of Quest Warrior, so my assumption is that this is Quest Warrior. I think Quest Warrior has finally eked out the position as being the Tier 1 Warrior deck. Pirate Warrior, obviously pretty targetable, even though it does have those explosive starts. Priest, though, versus Quest Warrior is not a matchup I have a ton of experience with, especially because there's so many different ways you can play Priest. You can play into that Divine Spirit Inner Fire combo. You can play into even Miracle Priest variants. You can play Dragon Priest. Kevin, do you have any experience with this kind of matchup?
I mean, so the question is going to become, there are two ways this could go, right? It could be a Dragon Priest, or it could be that they're all in on one of the really cool like singleton gimmicks, right? They might decide to go for a Kazakus style. On its face, this definitely looks like Dragon Priest with Ysera in play. Worth noting, though, that at least the Trailblazer, popular in Priest because of Shadow Visions. If you can get the Sealed and Goro pack into your deck and hit it with Shadow Visions, that gives you a lot of ways to refill your hand, a lot of flexibility in the mid-game. I would be astonished to not see Shadow Visions in this deck. And Shadow Visions right now, in this matchup even, just such a good card because sometimes you need a third Shadow Word Pain, sometimes you need a third Shadow Word Death. Assuming that this is sort of at its core fundamentally just a Dragon Priest that has some of these interesting extra outs, this is a matchup that can go really well for Priest in general. The one drawback is that there's not a lot of use of the stuff that manipulates the board based on attack value. So you do see one Potion of Madness here in the mulligan. That's really, really good in this matchup. Obviously, Bookworm, also very, very powerful. Those are easy ways to get rid of the Bloodhoof Brave, the Acolyte of Pain, the Ally Armorsmith. But as time goes on, Priest doesn't actually get to do a lot to threaten their own inevitability, right? The win condition in this deck is just stop your opponent from winning. And that's not a win condition per se, it's a not lose condition.
Yeah, there is no, to your point, no critical mass combo that's just going to win the game. There is no Ragnaros's hero power. There is no quest rogue function. So you are very much looking to value grind them out a lot of the times. And you mentioned Elisa Trailblazer. Obviously, Shadow Visions does make that card pretty amazing, but in general, it's still extremely powerful, even if you just get the one-off copy. I know, again, Brian and I were talking about it over the course of the weekend. You know, he was saying that that's how he likes to deal with Control Warriors, just grind them out via Shadow Visions and Elise pack. So curious to see how this goes. I do want to point out in the first game for Mexico, first series rather, Irvin G did have a disconnect, unfortunately, while playing against Poland, which was an automatic loss. So the team all decided that they would prefer him to not use the webcam just to make this as less intensive on his internet connection as possible. So that's why you're seeing Anduin there and not Irvin G.
Yeah, it's good to note, and we obviously would prefer that you know, the game be kept intact at the expense of being able to see when he laughs or is upset if he gets the wrong cards. In this situation, though, I mean, Irvin G has hit lots of really good early game. I do expect him to just play the Twilight Drake here now that he's got 2 Bookworms. One will activate the other. If he could run that Acolyte of Pain into something, then Potion of Madness might be an option. But as it stands, oh, and he's actually just gonna wait. He'd rather get a little bit bigger body on his Twilight Drake.
I mean, that also protects the Cabal Talon Priest from the Axe, so I mean, that is certainly a consideration, and we see there the Axe doesn't come out and do any damage. It's just going to be the Ally Armorsmith, but this is going to be amazing. This is as feels good man as it gets. Ally Armorsmith, get out of my dojo. My name is Bookworm. I am a dragon.
Yeah, that's a phenomenally good play, and this is actually one of the things that makes the Quest Warrior quite weak, is that most of its minions are targetable by Priest. Until you get into the late game, until you start hitting Curator and Primordial Drake and some of the stuff in the top end, all of the early and mid-game stuff is very vulnerable to Priest removal. And over time, if Priest just keeps getting to remove minions, chip damage, prevent the warrior from stabilizing, from working towards quest completion, that's really scary.
This is, again, a good reason why Twilight Drake wasn't played, is to activate these dragons, because you know so many of these minions statted towards health are going to be coming out, and have to see if the second Bookworm is going to come out. And I want to point out, once we get to those minions you were talking about, Curator and Primordial Drake, those things are effectively, especially Primordial Drake, is basically immortal against Priest. It doesn't die to Dragon Fire Potion. You have to pretty much beat it with the board, and it's a very tall order. Again, Irvin G could just Bookworm this Brave, could even just Shadow Word Paint it and potentially play Drake, although you lose out at that point on the Dragon synergy from the Bookworm until you draw another Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this position, if you're Irvin G, Shadow Word Pain feels better because you are a little bit concerned about going wide on the board. You are fundamentally got a handful of spells, and you've got to think about, okay, is there a Brawl in play? Turn 7 is quite frequently Dirty Rat into Brawl, and that's something that you just have to be aware of and take into consideration, because if the Dirty Rat pulls your Twilight Drake and then you Brawl and lose everything but the Twilight Drake with 1 health, that's a real bad time if you're the Priest player.
I mean, speaking of bad times, this is just pretty much like a not great situation to be in either. Draconid Operative is probably just what you go with here. It is one of the most powerful Dragon synergy cards in the set, but in order to trade into this Curator, you are leaving yourself potentially extremely vulnerable to Sleep with the Fishes, right? So even if a Brawl doesn't come down, by trading into this Curator, you are putting yourself in a position to get the board sweep.
The thing, though, is that Sleep with the Fishes is almost always being combined with some other card, right? So this would require, right now, Malagos to have a Ravaging Ghoul or something to activate it. Primordial Drake right now not going to be enough because you can't get both of them played. And honestly, I mean, yeah, like if you're Mexico here, this is your chance to just start and put threats on the board. Like, yes, you are scared of Brawl. Brawl is an inevitability here. At some point, you just have to accept that you really need to get out in front of this. With a handful of spells, like sometimes that's the only choice you have. The extra Power Word Shield here is nice. More cycle is certainly valuable. Allows this trade to go off really, really well. I just don't know. Like, I look at this and I think sooner or later this Brawl is coming out, and if you're Irvin G, at what point do you just get on the board in the most meaningful fashion you can?
it feels like Irvin G is kind of still in that place where he's like, okay, I'm just trying to play around a bunch of stuff. And to be fair, getting that Power Word Shield, putting it onto the Bookworm, did play around just to Sleep with the Fish's Blowout coming out, because if you traded both bodies into the Curator, they're both sitting on 2. You know, do you commit an extra 2 mana to healing? What are you looking to do? Okay, so here's the biggest thing about the Draconid Operative in this matchup. Most of what's in the deck for Warrior is either removal or plays to the win condition of play a lot of taunts and then get a cool hammer and a cool hero power. You know, Ally Armorsmith and Dirty Rat, certainly powerful minions in their own right, but for the Priest player, kind of less so. You're not really building towards, again, as we talked about, that inevitability through the hero power that the Warrior gets for playing 7 taunts. So this is honestly, to me, kind of an underwhelming pick.
I mean, I like the Fiery War Axe. I do think it's worth noting that on a strict technicality, there is value in using Dirty Rat, because if the Dirty Rat pulls a taunt minion, that taunt minion doesn't get played, and you may be able to just deny the Warrior quest by a turn by taking away one of the resources they need to do that. This sets up a really nice Primordial Drake. Warrior now at 5 of 7 taunts. Like, you have to be worried about that being a serious problem very soon, and Primordial Drake just, you don't have an answer to. Nothing that the Priest can do here answers Primordial Drake.
Malagos Taiwan looks almost disgusted with himself with how good that Primordial Drake was. Like, he's just sitting there laughing. He's like, hey, you know what we could just do? Kill the dragons with my own dragon, and then just go.
Yeah, and this is where, like I said, I mean, at some point, brawl or no brawl, you just have to get on the board. Getting the Sealed Angoro pack into the deck makes this next Shadow Visions feel a little better. This is a really good spot to be in for Malagos Taiwan. He's going to be able to just kind of like take his time, set up a really nice board. If he plays anything other than the Accolade of Pain, it's immune to being deleted by just the Dragonfire Potion. They all have more health than Dragonfire Potion deals damage, which is just a problem for Priest in general right now. If you are dealing with high health minions that you can't clear, what is your follow-up? What is your answer? There's one Bookworm in hand, but there's nothing to activate it. So even the Bookworm removal that would take care of this next Ally Armorsmith or the Direhorn Runt, just that option isn't available right now.
Yeah, and really Irvin G was just kind of in the position where he's like, okay, I want to get maximum value on the Twilight Drake. I want to shuffle that Sealed Angoro pack into the deck. You know, a 5/5 body doesn't hurt, but yeah, he's just kind of at a point where Malagos Taiwan has a full hand. He's getting ever closer to finishing that quest, and it kind of feels like Shadow Visions is going to have to do something really impactful in terms of drawing that Sealed Angoro pack. And then you also just need a really good Sealed Angoro pack, and I'm not actually sure what you're even looking to pull that turns the situation around.
Yeah, it's very difficult to say at this point. Priest of the Feast is nice, but I mean, that's a card that you're using to like restabilize in a matchup where you've been threatened. And in this matchup, Irvin G needs to be the one pushing threats and pushing damage, not responding and trying to get health back. Priest of the Feast letting him get a couple of hit points back after he eats the first really bad hits from the Ragnaros hero power is fine, but fundamentally you're just in a bad place here. Stealing the Accolade of Pain is nice, more for denying the value to your opponent, and Northshire Cleric could actually be interesting here. Depends on... So he's going to try and remove the Primordial Drake. That makes a lot of sense. Gets the heal, which will be some additional draw. There is the risk here that you hit the Angoro pack before you get to Shadow Visions. Shadow Word Pain, though, a nice pickup here. Shadow Visions does hit the Angoro pack, so that's really nice. And he is actually going to be able to clear the board here using this Fiery War Axe.
All right, let's see what we get off the pack. This is super fun. I love this animation. We are looking at Gluttonous Swamp Ooze, Sunkeeper Tarim, Sated Threshodon. That is, I believe, is one of the Tar Creepers and then the Stegodon. So, not bad. And really the biggest saving grace is that there's another pack still in the deck. Unfortunately, you've used one Shadow Vision, so you can't necessarily pick up a third pack. That would be truly pay to win. And obviously that is not something we can get behind as Blizzard Entertainment employees up on the desk. So have a nice clean match.
Nice clean match. So, I mean, the quest is complete. Sulfuros comes out. This is going to be an opportunity for Malagos to clear some of the concerns on this board. His hope, I think, here is that the hero power doesn't go face, but such is life. And he's just got to think about his health total now as he starts to play here. Like, yes, there is an Ally Armorsmith in play here, but I mean, you don't know what else is in this deck for removal yet. The Bookworm activates off Ysera off the top. What? Oh, just what are the odds? That's so good. Gluttonous Ooze value to boot. This is exactly the swing turn that Irvin G needed, and this is gonna force, I think, force a Dirty Rat Brawl from Malagos.
Yeah, now suddenly with the pack, there's just so many other minions in the hand to where realistically there's a chance Ysera actually is not pulled because generally speaking, you know, take away that pack and you're suddenly looking at Ysera and Priest of the Feast. So this is really just good Dirty Rat fodder. But yeah, have to absolutely believe with the way this is looking, the order of things is going to be Dirty Rat, Brawl, Hero Power.
I mean, it basically has to be. I wonder though if you don't Dirty Rat. Yeah, okay, he's gonna not Dirty Rat. This is one thing I think he has to think about is that if he pulls something really big with the Dirty Rat and it survives the Brawl, that's actually worse. And this is an okay situation where he's got the ability to.
The volcano just went off, Kevin.
I didn't know the volcano
I don't know what's
could go
going on
off.
anymore.
I have no idea.
I think there was a game, but now I'm just so fixated on the volcano. I thought like the game was disconnecting. And, like I didn't know what's going on.
Why is
there.
everything shaking? Did someone concede? No. So Stonehill Defender discovers some good options here. I think Ali Armorsmith, again, just for the survival, is probably the best option. You're always tempted to look at that Tar Lord, but it just isn't enough. Draconet Operative, naturally in a Dragon Priest deck, and hits some pretty good stuff. I think Direhorn Matriarch is just the natural choice here because you don't get any value out of Whirlwind or Ravaging Ghoul. In theory, they look nice alongside a Dragonfire Potion, but in practice, they just don't do anything.
And I think at this point with that Direhorn Matriarch, it survives a hit from the hero power. You could just bait out and execute, in which case you feel safer playing that Ysera. So Direhorn Matriarch, though, at the end of the day, I think getting picked there because it's big.
It is very big. It is very large and very scary. And Taiwan right now is sitting there and doing the math. Like, can we survive? What options do we have? Execute is mandatory just to stay in the game here. I think you're forced to hero power to attempt to clear the operative. Also because if it goes face, that does put the priest at 10 health, and that's a situation where you actually have the ability to maybe set up a multi-turn lethal because you've got the War Axe in hand, and there's not liable to be taunt in this priest. They don't know about the Tar Lurker, but that's a whole separate problem, frankly.
All right, so that is just going to go face. The operative survives, but thankfully you've got more taunts because that's what your deck does. It just plays taunts. To hold off that operative. You've seen 2 Bookworms. I believe you've seen 2 Shadow Word Pains. At this point, picking up Public Defender isn't particularly flashy, but I think that's just what you do because it's just a wall to, keep damage out and your health is low enough. But to your point, there's that lethal setup.
Yeah, and this is really scary. I mean, I feel like this is an opportunity for if you're Irvin G here, like you have to actually heal your face somehow. And I think that's what's going to have to happen here is you're going to put down maybe both of the Priest of the Feasts and just heal face.
No consideration to maybe Stegodon, just to put up a taunt wall there?
I mean, it could be. You could do Stegodon and Priest of the Feast, but I think you need 2 bodies on the board, so you have to play the 2 4-mana minions, heal face so that you're out of range of the hero power. I guess Stegodon keeps you alive from the potential of hero power going face, but this is a risky situation. Like, both of these players are now basically being asked, like, what do we lose to? There's no lethal for the priest because Dragonfire Potion clears the minion, but they've only got 8 damage available to them. So you can't do that. I don't think you can Priest of the Feast Dragonfire Potion even and just say, okay, that's 2 bodies and a heal. Is that enough? Because you are still at risk of that lethal.
Yeah, I definitely like the Stegodon coming down. I think that's just safer overall. On the off chance something you are not predicting comes out. Maybe there's just a one-off copy of Grom.
Second Brawl. I mean, there could be any number of things here. Hey, speak of the devil, and it shall appear. If this Brawl leaves up that anything other than that Stegodon, that is lethal.
I mean, you could just play down the Public Defender to increase your odds there.
This is. I mean, I think you have to Brawl here. You absolutely have to Brawl because your only out is hero power face. The Whirlwind Sleep with the Fishes isn't enough. It doesn't clear anything. You don't want a Dirty Rat and risk pulling something more powerful out of that deck because you just have no idea what's in it.
I guess if you just Brawl first and then you play the Defender, at least then you're getting the guaranteed wall.
Yeah, because you need that to stay afloat here. So the mandatory brawl going to come down. You also have to just test hero power. If this hero power goes face, that's the game. Oh, but the Stegodon lives. Okay, so...
Trusty Stegodon.
So do you hero power and defender? Yeah, they're going to go for it with the hero power and the defender. Hero power goes face. That's big.
Now, were both of the Shadow Word Pains I believe they were both the natural Shadow Word Pains, so we don't have to worry about, a potential Shadow Word Pain coming out and maybe closing out the game. I'm going to say Sunkeeper Tarum is going to...
Shadow Visions hit a Power Word Shield and an Ungoro Pack.
So at this point, you cannot heal enough, even with the Priest of the Feast, to get above the range of the hero power.
Shield block, though.
Okay. Yeah, that actually gets you not quite there.
Not quite out of range.
Yeah.
If you could play it behind Priest of the Feast, you could do it. You maybe slam and hope to draw into something. I don't like. There's no good out here. They're just going to put more bodies on the board and hope.
Yep, you're hiding behind the taunts, and you're just saying, okay, and I've seen both brawls. Basically, it's
hit me with
potential,
the 25% chance, yeah.
I was going to say, or there's like Sleep with the Fishes out still, but...
Still not enough, though. I mean, this is very much if hero power goes face, we lose, and we just have to accept that that's the reality of late game against Quest Warrior. Doesn't do it.
Trusty Stegodon. I like this now. We're both just hiding behind the walls. The problem is that one of us here has the hero power. That's doing 8 damage a turn.
And death is not what you wanted to pick up here, so I just don't know what you do.
I think, so you can play Priest, you can play the shield block, you can play the hero power, you're putting another minion on the board, you deal with the public defender, and at that point they have one taunt on board, but you've at least healed out of range.
Yeah, I mean, Priest of the Feast, shield block, heal gets you out of range of the immediate lethal, but it doesn't, I don't think, give you enough ways to actually just win the game. And you can't remove this Ally Armorsmith, so the Ally Armorsmith's going to get value and keep the warrior in the game as well.
Malgo's Taiwan just having a great time. You wouldn't know this was such a tense match. It's just like, I can't believe it. He got shield blocked.
It's just a party in there, and you can see somebody's kind of like peering around the corner behind him like, what are you so excited about right now?
Run, Malagos Taiwan, run. It's not safe. That's the bad guy in this movie.
Oh, this is just so tense because I just don't know. I mean, this is... With the brawl gone, there's not really a good way to get rid of this Tar Lurker, so I don't know how Taiwan actually closes this out if they can't hero power to victory.
I want someone to walk back to this guy watching Malagos Taiwan because it's called Hearthstone. You can download it for free on PC or mobile. Just build a collection of cards.
Shield block is a big pickup here. That's a decent way to stabilize a little bit for the warrior. Also maybe draws something useful. Slam is not exactly what you wanted, but it might enable a decent sleep with the fishes.
I was going to say, you could sleep with the fishes, double whirlwind. Like, you're expending a lot, but at that point, you can clear the Priest of the Feast. So if you think Priest of the Feast is going to be an issue and you just need to get rid of it to dodge future healing, then you could commit a lot.
I just don't know. It's very difficult. Like, you absolutely still have to hero power here pretty much no matter what because you need the hero power to hit something. The Direhorn Matriarch is nice, but it's not enough. So Whirlwind Sleep with the Fishes will kill 2 minions. Means taking some damage to your own Ally Armorsmith, but that's sort of the cost of doing business at this point. And if the hero power hits...
Oh my goodness. This game, man, this game is absolutely delivering. Now, is Tarum, I don't think Sunkeeper Tarum changes anything.
It doesn't create a lethal situation, that's for sure. Although that second Ungoro pack could do just about anything.
What could you get off the Ungoro pack there that could potentially change things?
I mean, anything that allows him to stabilize a little bit. I don't even know. This is...
You could actually... Okay, so you could Dragonfire Potion here. You get through the Ally Armorsmith, and then you swing and you're a couple points off lethal. So if you find something else that just does a little bit more damage, just gets you there. Now, you won't get the full pack because of the way this works. So he's only going to get 4 cards. And that is...
Okay, so Firefly to set up a Blaze Caller is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's absolutely lethal over 2 turns now.
You know, and I say you play the Elemental itself. Just go as wide as you can.
Yeah, put as many things in the way of the hero power as is humanly possible and just hope.
Oh, he summoned over Tarum there.
He needs to clear the Armorsmith first? No, he can't. If he Tarums, he's doing it specifically just to have the extra body on the board, and he trades the Draconid Operative into into the... Oh, this is... I guess this is our way to do this. Like, you were dead to hero power either way, so you may as well just use that second weapon charge. Get the value you can. You've got lethal if this hero power doesn't go face. But if the hero power goes face, that's the game. Ravaging Ghoul Whirlwind takes care of 3 of the 4 minions. It's a 50-50 shot.
Oh man, this is it. It's coming down to the wire.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I wish we could see Irvin G's face right now, man. This is intense. We see Malagos Taiwan clapping, so.
And he gets it. Oh my goodness. Okay. Ties up the series 2-2 after just the grindiest back and forth match.
That game absolutely delivered for me. That was what I wanted to see there. The Ungoro packs came into play. The Priest was essentially one turn. The guy in the back can't believe it either. He's like, you were so close, man. You almost had it, but yeah, we're going to be heading to our first ace match of the night.
Yeah, and it's this is exciting, actually. We've seen some new stuff come out. We've seen some interesting tech from both sides of these matchups. Going to a Game 5 just feels good. And I think after that match, especially, like, you saw exactly how powerful Priest can be against Quest Warrior, and it ultimately did just come down to the variance on the Ragnaros hero power. That was so close, and had that not gone face, the game goes the other way.
But it also just goes to show why that deck is so powerful. You just get to a point and you're like, well, I'm doing 8 damage a turn for 2 mana. If you can keep up, great. You know, the Priest went down to 1 twice, and was forced to heal out of the range. So really exciting match. But yeah, Control Warrior, absolutely a tier 1 deck. In this ace match, though, it is going to be Empanizado versus Tom60229. It is going to be Shaman versus Paladin. And I think the good news here for Taiwan is you absolutely have to feel good about this.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, like, of these decks, I think if you are in Tom's position, Paladin is the stronger deck here. Shaman has the potential to just be explosive in the early game. We saw that from China earlier. You had already seen Rogue used up on the side of Mexico. You had already seen the Mage used up on the side of Taiwan. So the alternatives were Warlock and Hunter. And I don't know that Mexico has a Warlock deck that they're actually confident in, so I don't think they were ever going to play Warlock. You knew they were falling back on Paladin. I just don't know if Taiwan has the correct tech to stop early Shaman.
And it depends how fast that Shaman goes in the early going. So a lot of unanswered questions as we get into this. I want to highlight, though, coming in, Taiwan was absolutely the favorite going up against Mexico. Mexico has managed to make this competitive, and it comes down to this final Game 5. Here we see, once again, Empanizado versus Tom60229. And the last time these two squared away, again, this was that match that Tom was just like, oh, I got this. This is easy. Alex Straza, Fireball, Pyroblast. So maybe Empanizado can get a little bit of revenge for both himself and Mexico.
Yeah, I'm feeling Taiwan here. I'm feeling the Paladin pick, and I think that being forced onto Shaman because they can't trust Warlock is a rough spot for Mexico to be in. I think there are 2 ways to do this, right? You lead with your weak decks in a lineup like this, and you hold back your good stuff so that you maybe get lucky and you see your opponent do the opposite, where they've led with their strong stuff and have maybe used their ace slot as a way to just kind of hide something that wasn't phenomenal. That was the Mexico strategy. Taiwan, on the other hand, has got something really great to fall back on in Paladin. Paladin is arguably one of the best classes in the meta right now, and certainly well situated against Shaman.
To be fair, I don't think that was necessarily the intended strategy. I don't think Pimping Ho knows that Shaman is in a tier 1 class. I think Pimping Ho's don't worry, guys, we're leading with our best foot. But,
yeah, start strong.
Finish strong here. In this case, like, great, we started strong, and now we can just finish with Paladin, so this is great. But on paper, Paladin, just in a power class right now, certainly I would think the favorite almost against every Shaman archetype right now that exists, because you know, the aggro Shaman is still out there and it can still do things, but you lost Tunnel Trog, you lost Totem Golem, so how aggressive is an aggro Shaman at this point? I
mean, the thing is that the aggro Shaman, like, it's not aggro anymore, it's just a weaker mid-range Shaman that has some burn in it, right? Like, that's really what that looks like now. I think the Elemental/Jade package is still where it's at. I think that's probably their best bet. But Paladin, one of the few classes that has reliable and consistent ways to recover from damage.
Yeah.
If they don't win the game by turn 8 and down comes Tyrion or Ragnaros Lightlord or Lay on Hands, like, there's just so many things that undo enough damage that now you're in a position where you need to win on the back of a big Bloodlust. You need to go wide on the board, and Paladin has tools for dealing with people who go wide on the board.
And this is it. It is going to come down to the decisive Game 5 to decide who wins the series and what the fate of Group G looks like. We see here Galaka Crawler, so Tom expecting Pirates.
Which is not a bad assumption, even in the most, like, consistent elemental shaman, there is just sometimes like a 4 pirate package, right? It's just a way to have some early game or thin your deck a little bit. I do expect to see Mexico hold the Maelstrom portal, operating under the assumption that maybe this is the traditional mid-range that has Lost in the Jungle, something like that as an opener. Also seeing the War Leader here from Tom, so we know that they've got the kind of Murloc-y mid-game plan. This is very common, right? There are 2 variants on mid-range Paladin right now. One that goes all in on Vine Cleaver into Lightfuse Stegodon, and one that goes all in on the idea that you can just get big damage off of your mid-game Murlocs and your favorite not-so-gentle Megasaur.
Yeah, it looks like here this is more kind of that mid-range style shaman. We see the Jinyu Water Speaker. We see the Mana Tide Totem. They probably needed to have a little bit more of an explosive start here. You know, could have been looking for Firefly, Bloodsail Corsair. Those early game minions, you know, coupled with that Flame Tongue Totem, you just start going. And, you know, Tom, once again, has assumed his this is already decided stance. This is his power stance. This is where he derives all of his Hearthstone abilities, leaning back in the chair.
Yeah, the further back he goes and the more he puts his feet up, the better he must feel. So reasonably confident there's no pirates, just dropping that crawler on 2, because if there were pirates, you probably would have seen them on 1. Love the devolve here from Mexico. That's a really, really smart move, and that's a great way to disrupt some of the scariest mid-game stuff that comes out from Taiwan. Murloc in particular is just very vulnerable to devolve because you take away all of the synergy all in one swift motion, and most of those minions are quite cheap and devolve into things that have maybe 1 or 2 hit points. So devolve into Consecrate is actually, or sorry, devolve into Lightning Storm for Shaman becomes a way to just kind of clear the board, even though in theory the Lightning Storm wouldn't clear a board because the War Leader buffs would take Murlocs out of range.
Yeah, there's a window of minions that are really heavily affected by Devolve, as you pointed out, Murlocs, because so much of their power is derived from the synergy of the Murloc Tribal. You know, once you get to later in the game, you know, Tyrion brought down from an 8-mana minion to a 7-mana minion. Yeah, you're not getting Ashbringer, but the reality is you're probably still getting really big minions, so that Murloc power spike is where Devolve can potentially shine. I do want to point out, though, that Empanizado, dropping that Mana Tide Totem, understanding that Taiwan had the coin, and essentially what you are requiring for that Mana Tide Totem to get cleared was exactly coin True Silver or coin Consecration. So I actually do really like that play, the old make 'em have it, because if it doesn't, you're getting 2 draws, and you know, even then, if they bring out the True Silver, you've baited out because you do have the Swamp Ooze in hand.
Yeah, and we've seen nothing yet for Elemental from Mexico, so I'm beginning to think that this might just be a little bit more typical Jade, which in a way is actually okay against Paladin, because if you're able to get wide enough on the board that you can bait something, right? One of the early equalities with a Pyromancer or a Consecration, basically the sooner you can make them use their removal, the more powerful the mid-game Jade gets. Because honestly, if a Jade Chieftain comes down pulling out anything worth more than maybe like a 3/3 Jade Golem, suddenly there's actually just a fast refill on the board, and Paladin clears wide boards well once or twice. And after that, they start to really struggle. There's probably Elder Peacekeepers in this deck. There's probably things that will enable some trades, but fundamentally, Jade just overwhelms over time. So you're probably going to see Aya come down on 6, and likely as not, there's more Jade to follow.
One thing I do want to point out, too, is, you know, we were talking about the fact that Shaman seems like they kind of struggle in this meta, but it is worth knowing that, you know, Priest, I call this Priest syndrome, right? Because back in the day, whenever you saw Priest in tournament, because you so seldom saw Priests, you basically had, like, no idea what was actually in the deck. So as much as, you know, you may see the Jade package there and start to think, like, okay, I have a good handle on what this deck is, there is going to be a certain element of surprise, which I think could serve Mexico very well.
Yeah, and this is interesting too. Like, I wasn't thinking about Thing from Below, because typically Thing from Below is the follow-up to a more totem-heavy package. You see the early Flame Tongue, but just being forced to get multiple hero powers woven in early on and the first Mana Tide Totem, all of a sudden, like, Aya looks really good here, but so does hitting your hero power, playing a Mana Tide Totem, and playing a 1-mana Thing from Below that trades into everything on the board.
Kevin, Aya always looks really good.
She does always look really good. That scary, spiny whip thing is just the stuff of most people's nightmares.
People are into what they're into, but goes ahead and takes your line of play, makes the totem, makes the Mana Tide Totem, makes the Thing from Below. I'm sorry, I just think, you know, Aya, of all the cards, I gotta say, it's certainly the flavor of it, the play sound, big fan of Aya Blackball.
Okay, yeah, you took that to a darker place than I was expecting, but that's okay. This is good. I mean, Mexico, they're not really worried right now unless Taiwan expends significant resources. Mana-Tide Totem survives, and that's a big deal because multiple draws right now is very, very powerful for Shaman. Once the second Mana-Tide Totem is gone, there's really not a lot of other cycle in this deck. You see the Thalnos in hand, but draw is at a premium. So every extra card that comes off this Mana-Tide Totem is a big deal. And on the flip side, board clears are at a premium for Paladin. They are the most powerful thing that Paladin has to offer in this matchup, because once there's a whole bunch of stuff on the board, the Quality Consecrate just handles so many things all at once. You really can't afford to just throw those away. Ivory Knight here is nice, and Spike Root Steed and Lay on Hands both very plausible. I feel like Lay on Hands is the better play just because Spike Root Steed throws up a gigantic flare that says, hey, do you have Hex? Because if you have Hex, you should Hex.
But if you're looking to protect your potential Tyrian Fort Ring, might be okay with that. One nice thing about the way that Ivory Knight went down is because the Paladin was at 30 health, there was no context given to what the spell was, so Mexico realistically has no idea what came off that.
I really like this from Mexico. Thalnos into double Maelstrom Portal, obviously just super wide on the board. Maelstrom Portal's not going to do much for you later than turn 7, so let's just do it. Let's just put that out there. And again, let's ask Taiwan, where's your removal? You need to get this Mana-Tide Totem out of commission. You need to do something to slow this game down for yourself.
Whoa. That's a Spirit Echoes.
That is Spirit Echoes.
Okay, now I'm excited. So Spirit Echoes, in case at home you've just never seen this card, because to be honest,
I've never seen this card at home, so...
I was going to say, when you're playing on ranked play and you don't see that, Spirit Echo is give your minions Death Rattle, return this to your hand. So talking about, again, asking the question, can Taiwan remove this? If Taiwan, doesn't necessarily deal with this board and it gets Spirit Echoed, I mean, there's no way you're expecting that to come out.
And Spirit Echoes is cheap enough that you may just say, you know what, we're going to hang on to this and we're going to wait until we're able to put down multiple creatures. Like, if you're able to get even just Aya into Spirit Echoes, like, there's so many things about that are terrifying. And this doesn't even clear the board. It also means giving Empanizado another card because Thalnos has to die. This is a really interesting situation.
Double Spirit Echoes. Okay, now I think that's crazy.
It is crazy. That is truly crazy.
I could see one Spirit Echoes. Like, I'm ready to be wrong, and honestly, this is one of those situations where, I'm wrong a fair bit, so I really want to be wrong on this one because I want double Spirit Echoes to be totally valid. But, like, what in your deck? Like, what situations, you talked about, maybe you have a full board, maybe you spend 7 mana building a board, then you kind of get the value Spirit Echoes. Man, I want to talk to Empanizado after this and see if he's actually tried playing this, if this is something that's been successful for him.
I mean, this definitely feels like something that's been tested, because I'm looking at it and thinking, you know what? You forced out the premium removal from the Paladin with a board that consisted of the 1-drops from your Maelstrom Portals and 1 thing from below. Like, this was not a serious threat, and Paladin with all the healing with a Lay on Hands off of an Ivory Knight, like, they were not worried about taking 5 damage. They're playing around Bloodlust is really all that is. So in this situation, like, Mexico can just say, yeah, here's Aya. Let's see. What do you got? Can you do it again? Can you keep clearing the board? And if they can't, all of a sudden, you're starting to think, like, next turn, there's room here to hit, a Jinyu or something off the top of the deck and play a Spirit Echoes and just have this ability to never run out of cards. Like, we were just talking about how draw is at a premium in Shaman. Draw has always been one of the major vulnerability points of Shaman because there's just so little in Shaman that is draw at all, and the draw that does exist is weak, right? Mana-Tide Totem, maybe you get 1 card, sometimes you get 2. Ancestral Knowledge is gone. Like, there's just not a lot of really great ways to get additional cards back unless you're playing something insane like a Cult Master. This is it solves draw because you just dump your hand and say, okay, now all of it has a Death Rattle. Paladin doesn't have Mass Dispel. What are you going to do?
I love that we're just up here having like a dissertation on Spirit Echoes. Like, that's how much I enjoy this set. Like, I just want to write like my midterm paper. I'd be like, why I love Spirit Echoes. But I want to point out, there's a very real world where Aya Black Pocket Spirit Echoed, and then like later comes down again, and then is Spirit Echoed again. That's not quite Jade Druid levels of like, oh my god, what's happening in my life, but it's pretty darn close.
I was going to say, it starts to put the concern in the head of Tom here that, like, yeah, you're looking at this board and you're thinking, oh, yeah, we can contest this. There's a bunch of little stuff and we got a bunch of medium-sized stuff. This is fine. This is good. And then Empanizado says, okay, here's a Jinyu, a Totem, and a Spirit Echoes. Now what? And if you're Tom in that position, you go, oh, I have no idea. Like, that's not an eventuality. I think they're even playing around.
So it's worth noting, though, when you play the Spirit Echoes, you probably don't want to clutter up your hand with a bunch of, like, you don't want a Searing Totem. You may not want an Argent Squire. You may not even want the Golem. So it might be worth looking to potentially trade some of these in. But I have to imagine Spirit Echoes comes out on this turn because this is just such a premium target in Eye of Black Pawn.
Tom doesn't look quite as relaxed anymore.
Tom doesn't look quite phased, but, this is one of those, where Xerxes has, like, the little bit of, like, bleeding in 300. The God King bleeds here, and Tom just kind of like, okay.
I mean, this makes the possibility of a single copy of Bloodlust at some point a very real problem because, yeah, you wipe the board just keeps coming back. Like,
I love it. Like, Tom is so emotive. So Tom was, like, smiling earlier, and he's like, all right, I played my Murlocs. You got your little stuff. What are you going to do? But Tom is now just kind of at the point where he's like, this is suddenly going against me. And
yeah, and
this is just Hex time.
Yeah, this is a Hex, and you blow up the Redemption with a Hex coming back. Like, okay, 201 Frogs is pretty okay. We can manage that. There's going to be, likely is not, a Jade Claws coming out here. There's just going to be lots of damage getting pushed. Tom is looking at this and saying, like, we're dead in a turn here unless we do something really good. And the something really good they can do is basically, right now, lay on hands and hopefully stay alive for one more turn.
Where did it all go wrong? Paladin was the powerful class. How is Shaman doing this?
Spirit Echoes, apparently, which we didn't know was the answer. And I know what I'm doing when we're done tonight. I'm going to go build a Spirit Echo deck.
I was going to say, just get on that ladder and play it. And yeah, the Tyrion, being played on turn 9, it's kind of like, okay, do you have the Hex or not? And the Shaman did have the Hex, so...
And frankly, even if they didn't, I mean... The reality is that Tyrion was getting cleared, and there was the ability for, like, a second Aya Blackpaw to come down. There's just so much there that could go horribly wrong. I don't think Tom can stabilize here.
No, again, to your point, if he clears the board, if he gets a second Consecration, guess what? Aya Blackpaw's coming right back down.
Yeah, and this is where it all goes terribly, terribly wrong, as there isn't lethal available, but I mean... You kill the 1/1 token, you put the Paladin at, like, 3 health, and then you just say, now what?
This is so awesome, because we were talking about, what's Mexico's identity in the Hearthstone Global Games tournament. We've kind of talked at length about the rest of LATAM and kind of how they come in here, but thus far, Mexico has shown us that their identities is kind of quirky deck builders. We saw Ysera Hunter, we're now seeing Spirit Echoes Jade Shaman, and it might be that there's some place in the world where this is a really, really common build, but I have yet to see this, and honestly, Mexico impressing me.
Yeah, this is not at all what I was expecting when we loaded into a Shaman game. I was looking for, like, a half-and-half Elemental Jade. I was looking for, once we saw the start of the game, okay, they're more all-in on Jade. Let's see some Jade Chieftains. Let's see some stuff that allows them to sort of dictate the pace of this game. There's a second equality here, but I don't think it matters. I think that is the game.
Good news. You can Sunkeeper Terum all those minions to only do 3 damage.
Which is actually a net change of nothing.
Yeah, it's turns out not super great line of play right there.
It puts the taunt on the board, but fundamentally it does nothing.
Tom is still kind of in the denial phase of grief, as we can see here.
Yeah, I mean, Spike Ridge Steed technically stalls. I don't think it stalls enough. But
Devolve is gonna,
Devolve is all she wrote. Oh, and White Eyes. What a crazy deck. That with Spirit Echo would also be terrifying.
That is going to do it, though. Mexico going to pull off what you have to think is the upset here.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
And really just carving out, as we said, what their identity is going to be going forward in the global games. They got this win. They're now 1-1. There's signs of life. And for Taiwan, this is, again, the God King bleeds in this group.
We went into this just saying, like, yeah, Taiwan is going to assert themselves. Mexico is going to be left in a position where they're going to struggle. They're going to be down and fighting for their life for the rest of the series. Not so much. Now, sitting at 1-1, they actually get to feel confident because they knocked off, again, arguably the strongest team in their group.
Yeah, and what a way for Mexico to kind of come in and do it in a very stylish fashion, right?
Yeah.
They came in, they were playing their own game. We saw Miracle Rogue. We saw this Shaman deck, and, it seemed like Taiwan was just about to fix the reverse sweep. They're like, all right, well, opening jitters. We've got them exactly where we want them. Paladin and Shaman, Spirit Echoes.
And they ran their own kind of cool, like, modified version of Dragon Priest. Like, they had all these things that were just very clever. But Spirit Echo, I mean, that is not a card I expected to see at all today, Rob.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the final results for this set here. Again, Mexico emerging victorious, taking down Taiwan 3-2. It all began with Yinis and Epsilon getting those early wins for Mexico. Empanizado able to close it out in the clutch as that ace match player for Taiwan. There were signs of life around matches 3 and 4 from Tom and Malagos, but yeah, for Taiwan, I mean, is this a little bit of a head scratcher? Do you kind of go back and we're just like, who saw this coming?
I mean, I think they're going to have to reevaluate later. So in Group G now, this is going to mean that things are a little bit less certain. All of a sudden now, Taiwan dethroned a little bit, and Mexico bounces right up there. They're now in a decent position, able to really look forward to saying, okay, we can probably fight well against Vietnam, against Singapore, and assert ourselves and get out of the group stage.
Yeah, and for the rest of the group, again, this is kind of that wake-up call. Like, listen, this group is fair game. The regional styles are coming together. You're seeing some clashing. You're seeing some deck building coming out from Mexico that's really disrupting the status quo in Group G. So I'm really excited to see if this deck can potentially pick up. This could be something we see more of even in ranked play.
Yeah, I think after tonight, there's definitely going to be experimentation with that, because that was a huge shock to everyone, and that is a card that, on paper, it looks really interesting, much the same way as some of the, like the Blood Warriors and the Sudden Genesis in Warrior look like they could do something really clever, but we just haven't seen them played. Spirit Echo now looks like the kind of card that people are going to go back and they're going to do some heavy experimenting with.
Yeah, and it's also, there was Devolve in that deck. There were a couple of other things. Obviously we want to point out that Shaman was certainly pressing the agenda there, and Paladin had to have the answer. But again, we're harping on Spirit Echo because if they'd had the answer, it didn't matter.
Right.
All that stuff was coming back down, and it solved kind of the big deficiency for that deck, as you pointed out, which is you're not drawing a lot of cards, so the resources eventually dry up. And, we talked about that's a shortcoming of Elemental Shaman.
Yeah, and I mean, Spirit Echo in Elemental Shaman could also be a very viable solution where, yeah, maybe you start to run out of juice in the mid game. You've played that really good 4, 5, 6, 7 curve in Elementals, and then you can have them all back and do it again. That's a terrifying prospect.
Yeah, Spirit Echo, certainly a card to be watching out for. So, coming into this, Mexico's aspirations might have been a little bit more like, okay, this is our first chance on the global stage. We're going to kind of get our feet wet, see how things look. Do you think after a performance like this, taking out Taiwan, maybe the expectation becomes a little different?
I mean, I think if you're in this group now, you have to look at Mexico and say, okay, they just took a convincing series. It went to 5 games, but they took a convincing series against probably the strongest team in this group. And they're innovating in a way that wasn't expected. They didn't just show up. Like, we were talking by about midway through Game 3 about how, okay, maybe Mexico is, like, wisened up and they're going to play standard meta decks. They're going to bring the things that everybody else brought. And then all of a sudden they turn the corner with this crazy Shaman deck, and now they look assertively like they can surprise every week.
Yeah, let's take a look at the results from today. Obviously, this closes out Week 3 of the Hearthstone Global Games. Again, China managed to stay alive, find signs of life. They're now at 1-1 in Group A after taking out Brazil 3-1. And then Mexico, as we just saw, managing to avoid the reverse sweep, doing it in style, winning 3-2. So it's been an exciting Week 3 of Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, I mean, Global Games as a whole has just been a lot of fun. It's cool to see some of the up-and-coming players. I certainly didn't know as much as I would have liked to about the Mexican players before today, and now I'm really excited to see kind of where they go and what additional innovation is going to come out from the regions, because this is one of the things that is just great about Hearthstone this year as a whole. We're seeing more international competition. HCT has international championships every season. Global Games is mashing all these players and players who aren't necessarily a part of HCT on a recurring basis into this kind of cool new arena, playing as teams, which I love. This has just been a tremendous experience. Yeah,
that's going to do it for us here. Obviously, now, again, Kevin, sad to say you're just filling in. We will have Cora back next week. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Anybody you want to shout on the Blizzard Esports editorial team?
I mean, the whole team, thanks for letting me disappear for the day to come do this. It was a blast. It's great to be back behind the desk and working with you again, Rob. This was a lot of fun. And thank you to everybody who tuned in to enjoy this entire broadcast tonight. I personally appreciate it, but I know the whole team really enjoys it.
Yeah, and I want to say, if you're looking for more Hearthstone action over the weekend, DreamHack Austin, there's going to be Hearthstone Grand Prix beginning tomorrow, I believe at 9 a.m., so be sure to check it out. A lot of our friends casting that over there. Going to be exciting and lead right into Week 4 of the Hearthstone Global Games. Again, that begins pretty late if you're over here in California, but for Europe, it begins right at a decent time for you. So can't wait to be back here next Thursday talking more Hearthstone, seeing what surprises, what regional styles emerge, and where we go from here. So from all of us here at the ESL studio in Burbank, California, thank you so much, guys, and have a great week.